Before you close your eyes tonight, let the noise of the modern world fade away. Step back into the quiet of another century, where invention was born not in screens and wires, but in dim rooms lit by flickering lamps. You are about to drift into the 19th century, guided by the glow of Thomas Edison, a man who turned dreams into light and sleepless nights into discoveries. As you rest, the world of the past unfolds. Cobblestone streets, river steamers, railroads rising from the earth, and voices long gone but not forgotten. Tonight, sleep not as a wanderer of today, but as a witness to yesterday, a traveler in time, cradled by the inventions, the hopes, and the quiet dreams of a century that shaped us all. Step back into 19th century Pennsylvania, where bustling markets, elegant courthouses, early railroads, and America's first photographs captured a nation in motion. These rare images reveal a society on the edge of transformation, blending tradition and innovation in streets, bridges, and stations that became the backbone of a growing America. Spanish-American War Veterans Parade in Allentown, 1899. Veterans march proudly down Hamilton Street before the Commonwealth Building, greeted by cheering crowds and fluttering flags. Months earlier, they fought in Puerto Rico, enduring heat and battle. Now music fills the air as the city honors their service, each step echoing both sacrifice and the pride of returning home. National Peace Jubilee at Philadelphia, 1899. A grand court of honor rises in Philadelphia, crowned by triumphal arches and adorned with flags. Beneath its towering span, a military procession marches, celebrating peace after the Spanish-American War. The city's skyline frames the spectacle, blending patriotic pride with architectural grandeur in a moment etched into the nation's memory. Hamilton Street bustles with life in Allentown, 1899. Streetcars glide along Hamilton Street as pedestrians crowd the sidewalks, weaving between horse-drawn carriages and storefronts. Signs advertise local businesses, and children watch the lively flow of the day. This snapshot captures Allentown on the cusp of a new century, balancing tradition with the rapid pace of modern progress. Firemen's Parade on Hamilton Street, Allentown, 1898. A proud column of uniformed firemen marches down Hamilton Street towards Center Square, their polished helmets gleaming in the winter light. Streetcars wait as townsfolk line the sidewalks, watching the disciplined procession. This annual tradition honored bravery, community service, and the brotherhood that kept Allentown safe in times of danger. Vandergrift, a town in transition, 1896. From the hills above Vandergrift, Pennsylvania, the new town stretches across the valley, its streets freshly laid and buildings rising in neat order. This photograph marks the moment between vision and completion, capturing the promise of industry, community, and the carefully planned growth of a model American settlement. Central Square, Lebanon, 1895. Shaded by towering trees, Central Square bustles with quiet charm. Horse-drawn carriages rest along the dusty road, their drivers exchanging greetings under the summer sun. Wooden storefronts line the street, each window a glimpse into local life. This peaceful scene captures Lebanon before the turn of the century transformed its pace. Central Hotel and Carlisle Street, Hanover, 1893. The Central Hotel faces Frederick Street, with Carlisle Street stretching to the right. Behind it stand the High Street School, the town's high school in 1893, the Opera House, later the Park Theater, and St. Matthew's Lutheran Church, together framing the bustling heart of Hanover's civic and social life. United States Life-Saving Station, Erie, 1892. Standing along the shores of Lake Erie,
The United States Life-Saving Station watches over turbulent waters. Built for rescue and vigilance, its wooden structure and lighthouse guided mariners to safety. In an era before modern technology, it was a beacon of hope for sailors facing sudden storms.
The Grand Hotel Allen, Allentown, 1892. Rising proudly at the heart of Allentown, the Hotel Allen was a symbol of elegance and ambition. Its ornate facade, crowned by a pointed tower, welcomed travelers from near and far. More than lodging, it was a gathering place where the city's social and business life intertwined. 9th and Hamilton Streets, Allentown, 1891. Snow lines the center of Hamilton Street as horse-drawn carriages navigate the bustling winter scene. Early electric street lamps rise above brick storefronts, and the Brown Bear Hotel stands proudly at mid-block. This snapshot captures Allentown's growing prosperity at the dawn of a new century, blending tradition with modern ambition. Baseball at Penn's Old Athletic Field, 1891. Players scatter across the diamond at the University of Pennsylvania's Old Athletic Field, the crisp uniforms gleaming under a clear sky. Behind them, the grand collegiate buildings watch silently. This scene captures the timeless spirit of sport, camaraderie, and campus life in the heart of late 19th century Philadelphia. Street scene in Cleona, 1891. Along a dirt road lined with wooden and thatched buildings, townsfolk gather beneath swaying palm trees. Merchants display goods in the shade, while children wander curiously between visitors. This rare image captures Cleona at a slower pace, where daily life unfolded far from the rush of industrial Pennsylvania.
H.W. Hunsicker Clothing, Allentown, 1889. Shoppers crowd the corner of Hamilton Street, where the H.W. Hunsicker clothing store stands as a local landmark. Carriages roll past as men in bowler hats and women in long dresses browse storefronts. This bustling scene reflects Allentown's thriving commerce at the close of the 19th century. Union and West End Cemetery, Allentown, 1887. Marble headstones stand in solemn rows, casting long shadows across manicured paths. Towering monuments honor families whose names shaped Allentown's past. Among the stillness, the cemetery reflects both grief and reverence, preserving the stories of generations within its quiet gates, a lasting testament to the city's heritage and its people. Presque Isle Light, Erie, 1885. Standing sentinel over Lake Erie's shifting waters, the Presque Isle Light rises in sturdy brick and stone. Before its tower reached its final height, it guided ships into safe harbor. Surrounded by fence and trees, it symbolized vigilance, safeguarding mariners against the lake's sudden tempests and hidden treacherous shores. Allentown Boiler Works, 1883. Founded by Charles Collum and John D. Krause, the Allentown Boiler Works rose near the Lehigh Valley Railroad Yard. Its products served the White House, West Point, and markets as far as Canada, Cuba, and the Philippines. This view captures the industry's proud beginnings against Pennsylvania's rolling hills.
Winter on Hamilton Street, Allentown, 1880. From Center Square, snow lines the street as shoppers move between horse-drawn sleighs and storefronts. The A.M. Spring & Co. building stands prominently, framed by bare trees and early telegraph poles. This view captures Allentown at a crossroads, balancing its bustling commerce with the quiet charm of a winter's day. Carlisle Students in the Gymnasium, 1879. Inside a vast wooden hall, rows of uniformed students practice with Indian clubs and other gymnastic equipment. A group of onlookers watches from the balcony above. This rare glimpse into 19th century physical education reflects both discipline and camaraderie, capturing a moment of structured training at the Carlisle School. North 7th Street from Center Square, Allentown, 1876. Horse-drawn carriages move along 7th Street past the Grand Eagle House and the Allen House Hotel. Signs advertise local merchants as pedestrians navigate the bustling thoroughfare. This view captures Allentown's commercial heart in the late 19th century, where business, architecture, and the rhythm of daily life converged. Lehigh Riverport, Allentown, 1875. From the banks of the Lehigh River, a bustling port supports Allentown's growing industry. Boats rest along the canal, built to transport coal and goods that fueled the city's expansion. Across the water, warehouses and modest homes reflect a town balancing commerce and community in the heart of Pennsylvania. Allentown Rolling Mill Company, 1875. Alongside the Lehigh Valley Railroad, the Allentown Rolling Mill Company stands as a powerhouse of post-Civil War industry. By the 1870s, it was the city's leading iron producer, employing hundreds. Its sprawling facility turned out more iron goods than any competitor, fueling both local growth and national manufacturing needs. Old Academy, Plymouth, 1875. Viewed from Academy Street, the Old Academy stands in pastoral quiet, framed by open fields and a split-rail fence. Its simple white structure reflects the educational ideals of rural Pennsylvania in the 19th century, serving as both a place of learning and a landmark for the surrounding community. Soldiers and Sailors Monument, Lancaster, 1874. Crowds gather in Penn Square for the dedication of the Soldiers and Sailors Monument on July 4, 1874. Flags wave above the ornate structure, honoring those who served in the nation's wars. Lancaster's bustling downtown forms the backdrop to this moment of civic pride and patriotic remembrance. Welsh Presbyterian Church under construction, Plymouth, 1873. Two figures stand in an open field as the Welsh Presbyterian Church rises in the background. Captured during its construction on Gaylord Avenue, the image reflects both the community's faith and the determination to build lasting institutions in the growing town of Plymouth, Pennsylvania, in the post-Civil War era.
Baldwin Locomotive Montezuma, 1871. Outside the Baldwin Locomotive Works in Philadelphia, the Montezuma stands ready, the first engine built for the Denver and Rio Grande Railroad. Its polished brass and steel gleam in the light, embodying the craftsmanship and industrial power that propelled America's rail expansion into the vast frontiers of the West. Winter on Hamilton Street, Allentown, 1871. Snow blankets the 500 block of Hamilton Street as horse-drawn sleighs navigate between rows of brick storefronts. Signs hang above shop entrances, and pedestrians bundled in winter coats move along the icy sidewalks. This quiet, frost-covered scene captures everyday life in Allentown at the dawn of the 1870s. Panorama from Sparks Shot Tower, 1870. From atop the Sparks Shot Tower, the rooftops of Southwark stretch toward the Delaware River. Ships rest in the harbor while church steeples rise above rows of brick homes. This sweeping view captures Philadelphia's bustling waterfront and dense neighborhoods at the threshold of America's industrial transformation. View of Fairview, 1870. Rolling fields lead to the quiet settlement of Fairview, where church steeples and modest homes dot the landscape. A split-rail fence runs across the foreground, framing the scene. This pastoral view captures the rural charm and open spaces that defined much of Pennsylvania in the late 19th century.
First bicycle in Hanover, 1870. In the town square of Hanover, Allen H. Wentz proudly rides a towering penny farthing, while Arnold Cleff sits astride a smaller velocipede. Curious onlookers and children gather nearby, with the General Hotel standing in the background. This moment marks the community's first glimpse of a revolutionary new mode of transport. Baltimore Street, Hanover, 1870. A dusty stretch of Baltimore Street in Hanover, Pennsylvania, in 1870, shows a row of simple two-story buildings with wooden facades, their staircases and porches jutting into the dirt road. Captured decades before modern paving, it reflects the modest beginnings of a street that would grow into a bustling hub of commerce. Holmdon Street in Pit Hole, 1868. A rare 1868 view of Holmdon Street in the once booming oil town of Pit Hole, Pennsylvania. Wooden storefronts and hotels line the muddy thoroughfare, where residents and visitors stroll under wooden awnings. Just a few years later, the town's fortunes would vanish as quickly as they had appeared. Lincoln's funeral train at the Pennsylvania Railroad Depot, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. This solemn 1865 scene shows President Abraham Lincoln's funeral train stopped at the ornate Pennsylvania Railroad Depot in Harrisburg. Draped in mourning bunting, the train carried Lincoln's casket on its long journey from Washington, D.C. to Springfield, Illinois, allowing thousands to pay their final respects along the way.
Southwest corner of Center Square, Allentown, 1865. The scene captures one of Allentown's busiest corners shortly after the Civil War. Brick facades, parked wagons, and dirt streets reveal the daily life of a growing town, where commerce and community converged in the heart of Pennsylvania. Pioneer Run Oil Field, 1865. By 1865, the booming demand for oil drove drilling beyond the flatlands along Oil Creek into the rugged hillsides of northwestern Pennsylvania. At Pioneer Run, a dense forest of wooden derricks rose against the slope, proving oil could be struck in places once deemed unlikely. Abbottstown Street, 1863. Originally known as Pigeon Street, later renamed Broadway, this view looks toward the intersection with York Street in Hanover, Pennsylvania. The image captures the quiet thoroughfare beneath the prominent silhouette of the street's clock tower, marking a time when horse-drawn traffic and small shops defined the town's daily rhythm. The Market House and corner of Square and Frederick Street, 1863. Located in Hanover, Pennsylvania, this historic scene features the Central Hotel, whose windows marked with an X once served as the headquarters of General Hugh Judson Kilpatrick during part of the Battle of Hanover in the Civil War. The Market House stands prominently in the foreground, reflecting the town's commercial and strategic significance at the time.
Center Square, Hanover, 1863. This is the site of intense hand-to-hand combat during the Battle of Hanover, Pennsylvania, on June 30, 1863. Soldiers clashed in the very heart of town, with the center square serving as both a crossroads and a brutal stage in the fight preceding the Battle of Gettysburg. Wynwood, 1861. This photo captures the rehabilitated tracks of the Philadelphia and Columbia Railroad at modern Wynwood. Originally a winding, hilly route unsuited for high-speed travel, the Pennsylvania Railroad improved the line to meet its ambitious westward expansion plans, creating a straighter, well-maintained path through the township. Market Day on Hanover Street, Carlisle, 1860. Bustling with life, Hanover Street's market entrance in Carlisle welcomes townsfolk and traders. Stalls overflow with goods as men in top hats, women in bonnets, and children weave through the crowd. The scene captures the heartbeat of a Pennsylvania town before the Civil War. 6th Street Bridge, Pittsburgh, 1859. This image shows the second 6th Street Bridge spanning the Allegheny River in Pittsburgh,
designed by famed engineer John A. Roebling. Built in 1859, the suspension bridge carried pedestrians, carriages, and streetcars, serving as a vital link between the city's bustling commercial district and its growing northern neighborhoods.
Athensville Depot, now Ardmore, Lower Merion, 1858. Captured in the oldest photo from the local historical archives, this small wooden depot served as both a vital railroad stop and a community hub. Built for Pennsylvania's early rail expansion, it met the needs of passengers and freight until suburban growth reshaped the area in the 1870s. Third Courthouse in Greensburg, 1854. The Third Courthouse in Greensburg, built in 1854 at 2 North Main Street, stood as a symbol of civic pride and local governance. Designed by architect Samuel Sloan, the structure featured classical elements and a prominent dome. It served the community until being demolished in 1901 to make way for the current courthouse. Tioga Locomotive, Philadelphia, 1848. This photograph captures the steam locomotive Tioga as it left the Norris Brothers factory in Philadelphia in May 1848. Purchased by the Philadelphia and Columbia Railroad, the Tioga was emblematic of the rapid expansion of rail transport in Pennsylvania, showcasing early engineering prowess and the industrial ambition of the era. 8th and Market Street, Philadelphia, 1840. Captured by early photography pioneer Robert Cornelius, this daguerreotype reveals a bustling view of Philadelphia's 8th and Market Street. Storefront awnings stretch over cobblestone streets, protecting merchants' goods from the sun. Horse-drawn wagons and signs advertising goods hint at the city's vibrant commercial life in the dawn of the Victorian era. Possibly the oldest photograph taken in the USA, Philadelphia, 1839. Captured by Joseph Saxon on October 16, 1839, this daguerreotype depicts the arsenal and cupola of Philadelphia Central High School. Believed to be the earliest surviving photograph in the United States, its grainy texture and faint details reflect the infancy of photographic technology, freezing a moment from the very dawn of American visual history. These photographs preserve more than faces and places. They hold the rhythm of everyday life in a Pennsylvania that helped define modern America. From horse-drawn carts to steam locomotives, from market stalls to architectural landmarks, each image whispers of a time when the future was being quietly built frame by frame.
Step into North Carolina's past, where cobblestone streets, grand courthouses, and quiet rural towns told the story of a state and transformation. From the earliest photographs to scenes of industry, travel, and community, these rare images reveal a world both familiar and long gone, a North Carolina time will never return. A towering view of Wilmington skyline 1900. Around 1900, Wilmington's skyline was marked by soaring church spires and orderly streets lined with homes and businesses. The grand Gothic-style church dominates the view, while brick and wooden buildings stand as witnesses to a thriving port city, balancing commerce, faith, and community life at the dawn of the new century. The stately presence of Broughton Hospital, 1900. Perched on a hill in Morganton, Broughton Hospital rises with elegant symmetry, its towers visible for miles. Below, a small white cabin rests beside a still pond where two men pause in quiet conversation. This serene landscape hides the institution's bustling role in North Carolina's medical and psychiatric history. Market Day at James D. McNill Mill, 1900. On the busy corner of Green and Old Streets, farmers gather at James D. McNill Mill, their wagons loaded with goods.
Cotton bales, sacks, and barrels lined the dusty road. The mill, with its weathered wood and tall gable, was a hub of commerce in early 20th century North Carolina. Fayetteville Telephone Switchboard Operators, 1900. Inside the Fayetteville Telephone Exchange, women work the massive switchboards, connecting calls one cord at a time. The hum of conversation travels through wires as these operators become the unseen voices of a growing network. In 1900, they were pioneers, bridging towns and families in North Carolina's early age of communication.
Green Street Parade, Fayetteville, 1900. A grand parade marches proudly down Green Street, flanked by the stately Highsmith Hospital and Overbaugh House Hotel. St. John's Church stands watch in the distance as crowds line the sidewalks. This lively scene from 1900 captures Fayetteville's spirit, blending civic pride, community gathering, and the architecture of a growing town. Heath Morrow Hardware, Monroe, 1899. In 1899, Heath Morrow Hardware stood proudly on Franklin Street, its bold sign boasting, "We handle everything under the sun." From plowshares to Gatling guns, the store supplied a growing town. Outside, a horse-drawn wagon waits, while well-dressed proprietors and clerks pose, capturing Monroe's industrious spirit at the dawn of a new century. Gathering outside a North Carolina courthouse, 1898. A crowd assembles outside a courthouse in North Carolina on November 1, 1898. The scene captures townspeople dressed in their finest, some standing in conversation, others sitting on the grass. The building's grand arches and tall windows stand as silent witnesses to a pivotal day in the community's public life. Election Day in Laurinburg, 1898. A long line of men gathers on Laurinburg's dusty street for Election Day, November 8, 1898. Dressed in suits and hats, they stand beneath sparse autumn trees, their expressions a mix of anticipation and resolve. Brick buildings frame the scene, marking a pivotal civic moment in North Carolina's small-town history.
Patton Avenue and the Old Courthouse, Asheville, 1898. Patton Avenue stretches toward Asheville's Old Courthouse in this late 19th century scene. Brick storefronts line the street, their awnings shading pedestrians and shop windows. A horse-drawn carriage makes its way along the tracks, while overhead telegraph wires crisscross the sky, marking a city in transition between old traditions and modern progress. Wilmington Skyline, 1898. A sweeping view of Wilmington in 1898 captures church steeples piercing the skyline and brick buildings crowding the busy streets below. From the rooftops, the city's layered history unfolds, commerce, faith, and community life interwoven in every block, showcasing a thriving North Carolina port city at the threshold of the 20th century. Cranberry Mines, North Carolina, 1896. Nestled in the Blue Ridge Mountains, Cranberry Mines bustled in 1896 with rows of worker cottages, rail tracks cutting through the valley, and mining structures clinging to the hillsides. This vital source of high-grade iron ore fueled industry across the region, blending rugged mountain beauty with the grit of industrial ambition. North Carolina State Capitol, Raleigh, 1896. Framed by towering trees and manicured lawns, the North Carolina State Capitol stood as a symbol of governance and pride in 1896 Raleigh. Built in the Greek Revival style, its grand columns and stately dome watched over citizens strolling the grounds, reflecting an era of civic ambition and Southern architectural elegance.
Downtown Fayetteville and the Market House, 1895. In the bustling heart of Fayetteville, the Market House stood as the town's anchor in 1895. Horse-drawn wagons filled the square, merchants traded goods, and neighbors gathered beneath the clock tower. It was a scene of commerce, conversation, and community, reflecting the vibrant pulse of a southern town on the rise. Cherokee County Courthouse, Murphy, 1895. Between 1892 and 1895,
The Grand Cherokee County Courthouse rose in Murphy, North Carolina, its clock tower a proud landmark over the small mountain town. Built of brick and stone, it symbolized justice and order, standing as both a civic heart and a testament to the region's growing aspirations. View of Biltmore, Asheville, 1894. Photographed in December 1894, this image captures the grand Biltmore Estate, home of George Washington Vanderbilt II in Asheville, North Carolina. The distant silhouette of the mansion rises above rolling hills and bare winter trees. Built in the Gilded Age, Biltmore remains the largest privately owned home in the United States. Stonewall construction at Biltmore, Asheville, 1892. Photographed in October 1892, this image documents the early stages of building the Biltmore Estate in Asheville, North Carolina. Workers and masons can be seen shaping and placing massive stone blocks for the estate's retaining walls. This monumental project would become the largest privately owned home in the United States.
Patton Avenue, Asheville, 1890. Around 1890, Patton Avenue bustled as Asheville's commercial heart. Brick storefronts lined the street, their large windows showcasing goods for a growing mountain city. Horse-drawn wagons and pedestrians filled the scene, while a small park with a central fountain added charm, capturing the optimism of a community on the rise. Battery Park Hotel, Asheville, 1890. In the 1890s, the Grand Battery Park Hotel crowned Asheville's skyline, a Victorian masterpiece attracting travelers to the Blue Ridge Mountains. Its sprawling verandas offered sweeping views, while the gazebo in the foreground added charm to its manicured grounds, an enduring symbol of the city's rise as a premier mountain retreat. Passenger Station, Fayetteville, 1890. Shortly after opening around 1890, Fayetteville's passenger station became a vital hub for the CF and YV Railroad. The sturdy wooden depot with its broad eaves and bustling platform welcomed travelers and goods alike, marking a new era of connectivity for the city and linking it to the broader industrial growth of the South. North Carolina Centennial Police, Fayetteville, 1889. In 1889, members of the North Carolina Centennial Police stood proudly in front of Fayetteville's Market House. Wearing formal uniforms adorned with gleaming buttons and medals, these officers symbolized order during the state's centennial celebrations, captured here in a rare portrait that reflects both civic pride and the disciplined formality of the era.
Carpentry Force Cape Fear and Yadkin Railway, 1889. In 1889, the carpentry crew of the Cape Fear and Yadkin Railway gathered for this striking portrait. Dressed in work shirts, vests, and hats, they hold the tools of their trade, symbols of the craftsmanship that built America's railways. Their resolute expressions reflect pride in shaping the infrastructure of a growing nation. Buck Hotel in downtown Asheville, 1888. In 1888, Asheville's Buck Hotel stood as a hub for travelers and locals alike, its brick facade facing a lively downtown scene. Horse-drawn carriages filled the unpaved streets, while merchants and guests mingled. The hotel was a testament to Asheville's growing reputation as a destination in the late 19th century. Old Courthouse, Charlotte, 1888. In 1888, the Old Courthouse in Charlotte stood as a symbol of civic pride, with its grand columns and elevated steps. Citizens gathered on the grounds for public affairs, while horses and carriages lined the street. The building reflected the city's growing stature during the post-Reconstruction era. Raleigh Water Tower, 1887. This 1887 photograph shows Raleigh's iconic water tower, a vital piece of the city's 19th century infrastructure. Built from brick with a large cylindrical tank on top, it stands above nearby buildings and trees. People can be seen gathered at the base and along the rim, marking its role as a local landmark.
Main Street, Brevard, 1886. Around 1886, Brevard's Main Street was a quiet dirt road lined with modest wooden buildings. Horse-drawn wagons served as the lifeblood of local commerce. Residents, bundled for the season, pause for the camera, capturing a fleeting moment in a rural town that was beginning to find its place in North Carolina's growth. Hay Street, Fayetteville, 1886. Captured in 1886 by Peterson's art parlors, this view of Hay Street in Fayetteville reveals a lively scene of men gathered outside storefronts beneath bare winter trees. Signs advertise daily goods, while the cobblestone street and simple wooden poles speak of a time when the town was still finding its modern identity. First Duke Tobacco Factory, Durham, 1883. In 1883, the first Duke Tobacco Factory stood proudly in Durham, surrounded by warehouses and the Duke family home. The rural landscape hinted at a town on the brink of industrial change, as railroad tracks sliced through the fields, carrying the distinctive scent of tobacco to markets far beyond North Carolina. Sedberry's Drugstore, Fayetteville, 1881. In 1881, Bond E. Sedberry opened his namesake drugstore at Person and Gillespie Streets, becoming a cornerstone of Fayetteville's commercial life. The imposing brick building, with its bold signage, welcomed townsfolk seeking medicine, remedies, and conversation, marking an era when pharmacies were vital community hubs in post-Reconstruction North Carolina.
Patton Avenue, looking toward the square and old courthouse. Asheville, 1879. Patton Avenue bustled with carriages and pedestrians, leading the eye toward Asheville's old courthouse. Wooden storefronts lined the dusty road, their signs faint in the afternoon haze. This was the heart of a growing mountain town where commerce, law, and daily life intertwined beneath the Blue Ridge sky. Bennett College, Greensboro, 1876. Students and faculty of Bennett College gathered on its steps, a young institution dedicated to education for African Americans. Founded in 1873, it welcomed both men and women, fostering hope through learning. Decades later, it would become a women's college, continuing its legacy of empowerment and academic achievement. The Howard School, Gillespie Street, 1867. Built just after the Civil War, the Howard School on Gillespie Street stood as a symbol of hope and education in 1867 Fayetteville. Its plain wooden structure housed the city's early efforts to provide learning opportunities for freedmen's children, marking a pivotal chapter in North Carolina's post-war reconstruction and progress.
Fort Fisher, view of the land front, 1865. Captured in January 1865 by photographer Timothy H. O'Sullivan, this image shows the shattered remains of a gun carriage at Fort Fisher, North Carolina. The fort, a crucial Confederate stronghold, had just fallen to Union forces after intense bombardment, leaving its once formidable defenses broken amid the final days of the Civil War. Group at the headquarters of the Provost Marshal Department, 1864. In 1864, during the Civil War, armed men and civilians pose on the porch of the Provost Marshal Department headquarters in Madison, North Carolina. Their solemn expressions reflect a time of tension and vigilance, while the small wooden house served as a center of authority and military command. As these photographs rest in silence, they carry more than history. They carry the heartbeat of another time. A North Carolina built by grit, guarded by courage, and softened by everyday life. Though the people are gone, their moments remain whispering to us across the gulf of years.
Before cars, before highways, and long before smartphones, there was Michigan, raw, resilient, and rising from the wilderness. These rare photographs pull back the curtain on a century gone by. Each frame is a doorway to the past, showing a state being built by grit, snow, steam, and unshakable spirit.
Houghton, Michigan, Panorama, 1900. From Huron Street, the view of Houghton reveals a bustling Great Lakes town with Hancock visible across the water. Church steeples, smokestacks, and wooden rooftops rise against the hilly backdrop. This panorama captures a moment when industry, shipping, and small-town life coexisted at the edge of Michigan's wilderness. Harbor, Mackinac Island, 1900. Seen from above the waterfront, Mackinac Island's harbor bustles with early 20th century life. Commercial buildings and homes cluster near the piers, where steamships rest in calm waters. The wharves are busy gateways for trade and travelers, while beyond them, the open lake stretches under a pale horizon. Detroit Post Office, 1900. Majestic in its Romanesque Revival style, the Detroit Post Office stood as a symbol of civic pride since its completion in 1891. The imposing tower, arched windows and solid stonework projected permanence and authority, while the flag above reminded passers-by of the city's growing prominence at the turn of the century. Detroit Club, Detroit, 1900. The Detroit Club stands proudly at the corner of Cass and Fort Street, showcasing its second Renaissance Revival design. In 1900, it was a gathering place for the city's elite, where business leaders and social figures met under stone arches and ornate windows to shape Detroit's future.
Ottawa Beach, Holland, 1900. On the shores of Lake Michigan, Ottawa Beach bustled with life around 1900. A small concession stand with umbrella-covered picnic tables served visitors seeking shade. Leafless trees and wooden walkways hinted at a cool season, while the tranquil shoreline reflected the quiet charm of Holland's beloved lakeside retreat. City Hall, Mount Clemens, 1900. Standing proudly in the heart of Mount Clemens, this 1900 view of City Hall captures the elegance of late 19th century civic architecture. The stately clock tower rises above the surrounding rooftops, while leafy trees and brick-lined streets frame the scene, symbolizing the town's growing prosperity and civic pride. Main building, Michigan State Normal School, Ypsilanti, 1899. By the closing years of the 19th century, this towering structure symbolized Michigan's commitment to education. The Michigan State Normal School, now Eastern Michigan University, trained generations of teachers within its brick walls. Its tall spire watched over Ypsilanti, a beacon for learning in a time when education was reshaping America's future. Cadillac Square, Detroit, 1899. In 1899, Cadillac Square bustled with life as horse-drawn carriages and electric streetcars shared the streets. Towering buildings framed the busy intersection, while pedestrians moved briskly between shops and offices. This heart of Detroit reflected a city in transition, blending the grit of the 19th century with the promise of modern progress.
Palmer Park, Detroit, 1898. A tranquil view of Palmer Park in Detroit captures the stillness of 1898. A lone rowboat rests on calm waters, framed by lush trees under a soft light. This serene retreat offered city dwellers a peaceful escape, where nature's quiet beauty contrasted with the growing industrial heartbeat of Michigan. Belle Isle Park, Detroit, 1898. A serene portrait of Belle Isle Park in 1898, capturing its iconic stone bridge over calm waters. Surrounded by lush trees and abundant greenery, the scene reflects the park's bucolic charm, serving as a beloved retreat for Detroit residents at the close of the 19th century. Maltz Opera House Block, Alpena, 1895. Alpena's Maltz Opera House Block stood as a proud hub of culture and commerce in northern Michigan. Its brick facade and bustling street corner reflected a thriving lakeside community. Horse-drawn carriages lined the road, shopkeepers greeted locals, and the Opera House promised evenings of refined entertainment. Steinberg's Grand Opera House, Traverse City, 1895.
A bustling day on Front Street in 1895 shows Steinberg's Grand Opera House alongside E. E. Miller's drugstore as the Hannah Rifles march past in formation. Elegant facades, shop awnings, and curious onlookers captured the small-town pride and lively spirit of Traverse City at the close of the 19th century.
Grover Cleveland at Michigan Central Railroad Station, Ann Arbor, 1892. A sea of hats and overcoats gathers at the Michigan Central Railroad Station in Ann Arbor to greet former President Grover Cleveland. The crisp winter air carries the excitement of the moment as Mayor William Doty and President James B. Angel stand among the crowd, marking a notable day in Michigan's history. Kent County Courthouse, Grand Rapids, 1892. This imposing Romanesque Revival courthouse in Grand Rapids stood as a testament to civic pride and architectural ambition in 1892. With its bold towers and intricate stonework, it served as the seat of county justice for decades, becoming a landmark for residents and visitors alike in western Michigan. Woodward Avenue, Detroit, looking north, 1891. Captured in 1891, this view of Woodward Avenue in Detroit looks northward, revealing a growing city on the cusp of industrial greatness. Horse-drawn carriages share the streets with early electric poles, while brick storefronts line the avenue, marking a time when commerce, craftsmanship, and ambition shaped Detroit's bustling heart. Lake City, Main Street, 1890. A view of Lake City's Main Street in the 1890s looking north from the east side. Wooden utility poles line the dirt road, flanked by brick and wooden storefronts. A few townspeople stand near entrances, hinting at the slow-paced rhythm of daily life in a small Michigan community of that era.
Village of Burt Lake, 1890. This photograph captures the Burt Lake Indian Village in Michigan, offering a rare glimpse into the community's daily life at the close of the 19th century. Wooden structures line the background, while dirt paths and open spaces reflect the rural setting and modest resources of the settlement. Cheboygan Main Light, Cheboygan, 1890. Built along the straits, Cheboygan's Main Light anchored navigation in northern Michigan. The tower, keeper's dwelling, and service sheds appear in this 1890 view. Its lantern guided ships through fog, ice, and sandbars, safeguarding timber and ore traffic. A quiet workday scene honors dedicated keepers maintaining lamps, lenses, and walkways. Linden Mills, 1890. A sturdy mill stands tall in the heart of Linden, Michigan, its bold lettering announcing purpose and pride. Horse-drawn wagons gather beneath its porch where locals meet, trade, and labor. The scene captures a quiet moment of daily life powered by grit, grain, and the heartbeat of industry. Michigan State University Observatory, 1888. A rare photograph from 1888 captures faculty and students outside the original observatory at Michigan State. Dressed in formal wear, some seated and others standing proudly, they symbolize a generation reaching for the stars, literally. The octagonal structure behind them stood as a beacon of curiosity, science, and timeless academic spirit.
Detroit Museum of Arts, 1888. Built in 1887, this fortress-like structure once stood proudly in Detroit before its demolition in 1960. Its Richardsonian Romanesque style was rare and captivating. Visitors once passed beneath its towers to marvel at art. Today, only photographs preserve its memory, reminding us that even great beauty can vanish without warning. Saginaw City from Courthouse, 1888. From the courthouse rooftop, Saginaw stretches out in symmetry and smoke. This 1888 image reveals more than buildings. It captures a Michigan city on the verge of modernity. Churches, homes, and chimneys blend into a grid of hope. Look closely, and you can almost hear the clatter of horses below. Lumber Docks at Mackinac Street, 1888. Saginaw's Riverside hums with motion in 1888. Barges loaded with timber float at the dock, while warehouses crowd the edge of the water. It's a working man's world, rough, loud, and fleeting. This image captures the rhythm of Michigan's lumber boom, before the forests thinned and silence returned. Flushing Depot, 1888. A train waits in steam and silence beside Flushing Depot. Built in 1888, the station welcomed reunions, farewells, and mailbags full of news. Beneath its gabled roof, time paused for every arrival. It's a portrait of progress on iron rails, echoing the whistle that once stirred the prairie stillness.
Portage Avenue, Sault Ste. Marie, 1888. This aerial view of Portage Avenue in Sault Ste. Marie reveals the town's rapid development. A streetcar rolls toward the viewer, passing the Central High School, City Hall, and dense clusters of commercial buildings. The growth since 1872 is evident in every corner, from Fort Brady to Water Street's solid structures. Aftermath of the Big Fire, Newaygo, 1883. Charred ruins stretch across Newaygo after the Great Fire of 1883. Brick shells and scorched earth replace what once bustled with shops and lives. This haunting image, captured soon after flames died, is a stark reminder of how quickly progress can vanish and how fiercely towns rebuilt. Belle Isle Lighthouse, 1881. This petite brick lighthouse stood guard over Detroit's Belle Isle since 1881. Framed by trees and picket fences, it was less sentinel and more companion, a quiet guide in fog and snow. The architecture whispered Victorian grace, while the lantern above kept vigil over changing waters and decades. Allegan Railroad Depot, 1880. It's 1880, and the Allegan Railroad Depot hums with purpose. Men in dark coats pose by carts and steam engines, symbols of Michigan's rail-borne ambition. Behind their serious stares, you sense progress rumbling like the trains they built, carrying dreams, goods, and generations into a future none could yet see.
Old Tavern in Lawrence, 1879. In the heart of Lawrence, Michigan, locals gather outside a rustic wooden tavern. The building leans with age, but the spirits are high. Men sit and stand proudly, frozen in time, offering a rare look into small-town camaraderie just years after the Civil War. Berrien Springs, 1878. Horse-drawn carriages roll through snow-packed streets in this 1878 snapshot of Berrien Springs. With chimneys puffing and boots crunching frost, it's a Michigan winter scene untouched by modern comforts. Blankets, lanterns, and grit were the only tools for survival, and still, the town thrived in the cold silence. St. Joseph Life-Saving Station, 1874. Built in 1874, this life-saving service station stood along the shore of St. Joseph, Michigan, guarding the Great Lakes. With its Victorian-style watchtower and pitched roof, it reflects early coastal defense architecture. It later became a Coast Guard station, continuing its legacy of maritime rescue through changing eras and missions. Northwest corner of campus, 1873. A quiet view of the University of Michigan in 1873 shows horse-drawn carriages lining the street and leafless trees shading the Law Building and University Hall. These early structures stood proudly until change swept through. Haven Hall replaced the Law Building before being lost to flames in 1950.
Griswold and Lafayette, Detroit, 1873. Captured in 1873, this view of the southwest corner of Griswold and Lafayette streets in Detroit reveals a quiet, developing cityscape. Low-rise commercial buildings lined the streets, hinting at early urban growth. The wide, unpaved road and horse-drawn wagons reflect a time before the industrial boom reshaped Detroit forever. Construction of the Ferry, Michigan, 1873. In 1873,
The massive Ferry, Michigan was under construction, towering above the lumber and workshops that lined the shipyard. Her long deck and smokestack foreshadowed the powerful crossing she would make across the Great Lakes, carrying freight and people into a new industrial age for Michigan's waters. Clam Lake Hotel, Cadillac, 1871. The Clam Lake Hotel stood as Cadillac's first business, opening its doors in January 1871. Built from raw logs, it hosted pioneers and lumbermen who shaped northern Michigan. In front of the structure, a group of early settlers gathers, faces marked by resilience, in a town just beginning to find itself. Fort and Griswold Streets, Detroit, 1870. This 1870 photograph captures the southwest corner of Fort and Griswold Streets in Detroit, Michigan. Brick buildings line the snowy avenue, with pedestrians and horse-drawn carriages adding life to the scene. A tall church steeple stands prominently in the background, marking Detroit's growth during the post-Civil War urban expansion.
Kalamazoo Stagecoach, Plainwell, 1865. A fully loaded stagecoach rumbles through the unpaved streets of Plainwell, Michigan in 1865. Bundled passengers brace against the cold as horses pull the heavy vehicle past brick buildings. This rare capture freezes a fleeting moment of pre-railroad travel, a glimpse into the gritty, hopeful pulse of post-Civil War America. Jackson Mine, Negaunee, 1860. Taken in 1860, this image of Jackson Mine in Negaunee shows early open-pit iron mining in action. Dozens of men and horses dot the pit, carving raw earth for the iron that would fuel the coming industrial surge. The forest still watches silently from above. Fort Mackinac, 1856. This is the earliest known photograph of the Straits of Mackinac, captured in 1856 by Reinhard Wernick. The image reveals Fort Mackinac atop the bluff, overlooking rustic homes and rough terrain below. Life here was remote, rugged, and strategic, guarding one of Michigan's most vital northern passages before the Civil War.
The faces are gone, but their footprints remain, in brick, rail, and memory. These images aren't just echoes, they're testaments to everyday courage. Michigan wasn't simply founded, it was forged. As the snow fell and the furnaces burned, the heart of a state began to beat, and somehow it still does.
Step back into New Jersey's earliest days through rare photographs. From bustling Atlantic City boardwalks to quiet seminary halls, each image reveals a hidden story. Factories, churches, storms, and ball fields, this is a state in motion, where faith, industry, and leisure built a unique identity in America's journey toward modern life.
Bergen Line Avenue, Union City, 1900. A quiet winter morning along Bergen Line Avenue in Union City, New Jersey. Horse-drawn carriages pause by wooden storefronts, their upper floors lined with ornate windows. Locals in long coats and hats stroll beneath the wooden awnings, while the telegraph poles hint at a town stepping into the modern age. Oldwick, New Jersey, 1900. A tranquil winter scene in Oldwick, New Jersey. Bare trees line a dirt road flanked by white clapboard houses with dark shutters. A horse and buggy wait near the corner, while bicycles rest against a porch, capturing a slower rhythm of life in this rural American village. Upper Bloomfield Street, Hoboken, 1900. A cobblestone stretch of Upper Bloomfield Street between 9th and 10th in Hoboken, New Jersey. Tall brick row houses rise on either side, their stoops facing the quiet street. A lone horse-drawn carriage moves in the distance, framed by the symmetry of an era before the automobile's dominance. Train passing through Ship Bottom, 1900. Around 1900, a steam train crosses above a stone tunnel in Ship Bottom, New Jersey. Two boys with bicycles stand on the dirt path below, gazing at the passing cars.
The autumn leaves and rural surroundings frame a moment where small-town life met the steady rhythm of the rails.
Borden's Milk Wagon, Newark, 1900. In Newark, New Jersey, around 1900, a young boy stands inside a Borden's milk delivery wagon at 55 Nesbitt Street. Drawn by a horse, the wooden cart's large spoked wheels frame the company's painted logo. This scene captures the era's home delivery culture and the trust placed in neighborhood vendors. Hoffman Building, Morristown, 1897. The Hoffman Building stood prominently in Morristown, New Jersey. Adams and Fairchild grocers occupied one corner, while P.H. Hoffman and Son clothiers operated on the right. Its ornate brick facade and large display windows reflected the prosperity of the era and the town's growing role as a commercial hub. Horse-drawn buses, Atlantic City, 1896. Horse-drawn buses wait outside the railroad depot in Atlantic City, New Jersey. Passengers prepare to transfer from train to carriage, highlighting the city's role as a bustling seaside destination. Wooden buildings, telegraph poles, and busy drivers frame a moment when Atlantic City thrived as a hub of tourism and travel. Lambert Castle, Paterson, 1896. Bella Vista, better known as Lambert Castle, rose proudly on the slopes of Garrett Mountain in Paterson, New Jersey. Built by silk magnate Cathalina Lambert, the grand stone mansion reflected both wealth and ambition. With its turrets and imposing walls, it became one of the city's most iconic landmarks.
The La Tourette House, Bergen Point, 1893. The La Tourette House at Bergen Point, New Jersey, stood as one of the most fashionable resorts in the suburban district near New York. Overlooking the waterfront, its grand architecture and manicured grounds attracted visitors seeking leisure and elegance, reflecting the state's role in 19th-century tourism and society. Pennsylvania Railroad Depot in Jersey City, 1893. The vast interior of the Pennsylvania Railroad Depot in Jersey City, New Jersey, symbolized the age of steam and steel. Its soaring iron and glass roof arched over broad platforms and curving tracks. Bustling with travelers, the station served as a vital gateway between New Jersey and New York. Summer at the Beach, Atlantic City, 1892. In Atlantic City, New Jersey, a man carries a smiling woman through the shallow surf. Both wear modest bathing costumes of the era, their laughter framed by rolling waves. The playful moment captures the seaside resort's growing reputation as a destination for leisure and romance in the Gilded Age. Weather Record House, New Brunswick, New Jersey, 1890. This house in New Brunswick, New Jersey, served as a site for recording weather observations between 1847 and 1890. Its shuttered windows and simple brick design reflect the modest architecture of the era. Standing quietly on a busy street, it preserved decades of local climate history for the community.
Roseville Avenue Rail Lines, Newark, 1890. Railroads dominated Newark's transport in 1890. Along Roseville Avenue, steel tracks converged toward a small signal tower under a pale winter sky. Telegraph poles marched beside the rails, while wooden buildings framed the scene, capturing the city's industrial heartbeat just before these elevated lines would be lowered into the ground. Corney and Foote Company Fileworks, Paterson, 1890. The Corney and Foote Company's fileworks operated in Paterson, New Jersey, a city renowned for its industry. The sprawling factory complex with tall chimneys and brick buildings reflects Paterson's role as a powerhouse of American manufacturing, where skilled labor fueled progress in the nation's industrial age. Dexter Lambert & Co. Silk Mills, Paterson, 1890. Around 1890, the silk mills of Dexter, Lambert & Co. dominated the industrial landscape of Paterson, New Jersey.
With castle-like towers and expansive brick facades, the complex reflected the city's identity as Silk City. Workers here powered America's textile industry, producing fine fabrics that reach markets across the nation. Hamel and Booth Silk Mill, Paterson, 1890. The Hamel and Booth Silk Mill rose along Market Street in Paterson, New Jersey. Its long brick facade and rows of uniform windows reflected the city's booming textile trade. Telegraph poles and bare trees line the street, marking a moment when industry and modern infrastructure reshaped everyday urban life.
Laird's Store, Pleasant Plains, 1890. Around 1890, Laird's Store served the community of Pleasant Plains, New Jersey, as both a gathering spot and supply hub. Its wooden porch displayed goods beneath the shade of tall trees, while a horse and buggy waited nearby. The scene reflects rural commerce at the heart of small-town life. Blizzard on Spray Avenue, Asbury Park, 1888. After the Great Blizzard of 1888, residents of Asbury Park, New Jersey stand between towering walls of snow along Spray Avenue. Bundled in heavy coats and hats, they face the camera while dogs wander the narrow path, capturing the aftermath of one of the most severe storms in U.S. history. Arnold's Tavern, Morristown, 1886. In 1886, the historic Arnold's Tavern in Morristown, New Jersey, still stood as a reminder of its Revolutionary War past. Originally built in the 1740s, it had since been converted into stores, housing Adams and Fairchild Grocers and P.F. Hoffman and Son Clothiers. Its weathered facade carried centuries of community history. Lawn tennis at the College of St. Elizabeth, Morristown, 1886. On a grassy lawn in Morristown, New Jersey, students at the College of St. Elizabeth prepare for a game of lawn tennis in 1886. Wearing long skirts and hats, they stand beside a delicate net, rackets in hand, capturing a rare glimpse of women's leisure and sport in the Victorian era.
Statue of Liberty unpacked in Jersey City, 1886. In 1886, the colossal face of the Statue of Liberty rests on wooden supports in Communipaw, Jersey City, New Jersey. A woman and child stand beside the massive sculpture, dwarfed by its scale. This moment captures the statue's arrival from France before its assembly in New York Harbor. Walt Whitman in Camden, 1886. In October 1886, American poet Walt Whitman was photographed in Camden, New Jersey, seated in a horse-drawn buggy with his young friend Bill Duckett. Dressed in dark clothing and holding the reins, Whitman appears reflective. This image captures the later years of the poet's life in his adopted hometown. Mount Tabor Railroad Station, 1881. The Mount Tabor station stood along the Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western Railroad on the Morristown line in New Jersey. A small wooden structure with its name displayed across the roofline, it served local travelers before disappearing from the landscape, remembered now only through rare photographs like this one.
Thomas Edison's Laboratory, Menlo Park, 1880. Thomas Edison's Menlo Park Laboratory in New Jersey buzzed with innovation. Inside the wooden building, Edison sits among assistants, surrounded by tables cluttered with glassware, instruments, and electrical devices. This historic space was the birthplace of groundbreaking inventions that would illuminate and transform the modern world.
Fishermen at Seabright, 1873. On the sandy shore of Seabright, New Jersey, fishermen unload their wooden boat under the summer sun. Barefoot and hat-clad, they work beside a wagon with large spoked wheels, ready to carry the day's catch. The ocean's calm waves frame this timeless scene of coastal livelihood. Epicycloidal diversion, Atlantic City, 1870. In Atlantic City, New Jersey, the epicycloidal diversion stands as a marvel of 19th century amusement engineering. Built in 1870, each of its two massive wheels carried 8 cars holding 2 passengers each, allowing 64 people to ride at once. This early thrill ride foreshadowed the grand boardwalk attractions to come. Passenger train in Weehawken, 1870. Around 1870, locomotive number 72 stands at the platform in Weehawken. 2 railroad workers pose proudly beside the steam engine, its polished wheels and smokestack gleaming in the sunlight. Behind it, passenger cars stretch into the distance, capturing the rise of railroads as the lifeline of travel and commerce. Temperance Hall, Trenton, 1865. On October 2, 1865, Temperance Hall stood proudly in Trenton, New Jersey. The brick and stone structure, with its tall arched windows and classical facade, symbolized the movement for moderation and reform. People gather at the entrance while horse-drawn wagons pass nearby, capturing the civic spirit of post-Civil War America.
Earl and Libby Clothing Store, Vineland, 1865. The Earl and Libby Clothing Store stood proudly in Vineland, New Jersey. Its brick structure featured a wide porch where garments were displayed for passers-by. Women in dark dresses gather near the entrance, while a simple wooden fence frames the scene, capturing commerce in a post-Civil War American town. Herzog Hall, New Brunswick Theological Seminary, 1862. Herzog Hall stood on the grounds of the New Brunswick Theological Seminary in New Brunswick, New Jersey. Built in 1856, the grand brick building with its cupola and symmetrical windows embodied academic pride. This rare photograph preserves the seminary's early presence as a center of theological education. Trustees of the Burlington City Library, 1860. Trustees of the Burlington City Library posed before a modest wooden building in Burlington, New Jersey. Dressed in formal coats and tall hats, they stand alongside a tethered horse and scattered chairs. The scene captures both civic pride and the humble beginnings of public education in the community. Hoboken Knickerbockers and Brooklyn Excelsiors, 1859. Players from the Hoboken Knickerbockers posed alongside members of the Brooklyn Excelsiors. Just 13 years earlier, the Knickerbockers had played in the first officially recorded baseball game at Hoboken's Elysian Fields. This image captures the sport's earliest organized teams, standing at the dawn of America's national pastime.
First Presbyterian Church, Montclair, 1856. Montclair's First Presbyterian Church rose as the town's growing congregation demanded a larger home for worship. Built in brick with a tall steeple, the new structure stood proudly in place of the older building. This image reflects both spiritual life and the community's rapid expansion in mid-19th century New Jersey. Grave of Aaron Burr, Princeton Cemetery, 1854. A man sits beside the grave of Aaron Burr, former U.S. Vice President, in Princeton Cemetery, New Jersey. Burr, who died in 1836, rests beneath a tall headstone. The visitor's top hat lies on the ground beside him, an unusual and somewhat mysterious pose in 19th century memorial photography. Nassau Hall, Princeton University, 1850. Nassau Hall stood as Princeton University's proud centerpiece in Princeton, New Jersey. Built in 1756, it was once the largest building in the colonies, an academic landmark framed here by leafless winter trees. Its enduring facade reflects both colonial ambition and centuries of American scholarship.
These photographs are not just windows into New Jersey's past, they are echoes of determination, ambition, and community. Every cobblestone street, every seaside crowd, every brick mill whispers resilience. As you leave these images behind, remember, history is not frozen. It lives within us, shaping the spirit of New Jersey today.
Step back into Tennessee of the 1800s, where the streets of Nashville, Knoxville, Chattanooga, and small mountain towns carried the heartbeat of a growing America. Each photograph is a doorway to another time, where voices echo through rivers, railroads, and hills. Welcome to Forgotten Memories, reborn in light.
Steamboats on the Mississippi, Memphis, 1900. Along the Mississippi River levee in 1900, Memphis thrived as a river port. The steamboats James Lee, Harry Lee, and City St. Joseph lined the shore, their smokestacks billowing into the sky. These vessels carried cotton, goods, and people, fueling Memphis's identity as a gateway of Southern trade and culture.
Dyersburg, Main Street, 1900. Captured in 1900, this postcard view of Dyersburg's Main Street reveals a bustling small-town center at the dawn of a new century. Brick storefronts lined the unpaved road, with horse-drawn wagons still common despite the approaching automobile age. The image reflects Tennessee's shift from a rural past to urban aspirations. Junior preparatory class, Fisk University, Nashville, 1899. In 1899, students of the junior preparatory class at Fisk University gathered on the steps of the institution, embodying resilience and progress in post-Reconstruction Tennessee. Established to provide higher education for freedmen and their descendants, Fisk became a beacon of hope, where young scholars pursued knowledge against the backdrop of adversity. Coster Machine Shops, Knoxville, 1899. Inside Southern Railway's Coster Yard in Knoxville, steam engines line the erecting pit, while heavy machinery fills the utility track area. This vast machine shop was a hub of Tennessee's rail industry, symbolizing the power and precision that fueled progress at the dawn of the 20th century. Addison Avenue, Fisk University, Nashville, 1899. The view of Addison Avenue looks north toward Fisk University in Nashville. Visible are Jubilee Hall, the Fisk Memorial Chapel, and the Daniel Hand Model School. These landmarks stood as symbols of education, resilience, and hope for generations, shaping Tennessee's cultural and academic history.
Funeral Home of C.W. Franklin, Chattanooga, 1899. In 1899, horses and carriages line up in front of the C.W. Franklin Funeral Home in Chattanooga. This striking scene reflects the essential role of undertakers in the community at the turn of the century. Collected for the American Negro exhibit in Paris, it carries deep cultural and historical significance. Knoxville's first electric streetcars, 1897. These electric streetcars, proudly displayed in 1897, symbolized Knoxville's leap into modern transit. Yet their arrival sparked unrest when workers resisted city orders, igniting the infamous Depot Street riot. What began as optimism turned turbulent, reminding us that even progress carries shadows, shaping the resilience and memory of Knoxville's people. The Great Fire of Knoxville, 1897. On April 8, 1897, Knoxville was devastated by the $1 million fire that swept through Gay Street. In one image, firefighters battled the towering flames consuming entire blocks, while in another, stunned crowds gather at dawn to witness the smoldering ruins. The disaster destroyed businesses, reshaped the city's commercial heart, and left an enduring mark on Knoxville's history as one of its most destructive urban tragedies.
Shipping along the Memphis Levee, 1897. The Mississippi River levee at Memphis bustled with commerce. Goods, including cotton and grain, were stacked high in burlap sacks, ready for shipment. Horse-drawn wagons carried supplies across the busy waterfront, while cranes loaded cargo onto riverboats, showcasing Memphis's vital role as a hub of Southern trade and transport. Opening of the first S.H. Cress & Company store in Memphis, 1896. On April 18, 1896, Memphis witnessed the grand opening of its first S.H. Kress & Company 5 and 10-cent store. Crowds filled the street, eager to step into this new era of affordable shopping. This single store would later become part of a nationwide chain with over 250 locations.
City Hospital, Nashville, 1894. Completed in 1894, Nashville's City Hospital stood as a grand symbol of medical progress and civic pride. Its imposing architecture reflected both ambition and compassion, serving the city's growing population. The hospital became a cornerstone of health and healing, embodying Nashville's transformation into a modern and organized southern city.
Main Street, Johnson City, 1892. By 1892, Johnson City was transforming into a hub of commerce and growth. This striking brick building on Main Street symbolized ambition and progress, standing tall among simpler storefronts. The bustling street, lined with businesses and wagons, reflects a town quickly outgrowing its frontier roots and stepping into a new era. Briceville Coal Mining Camp, 1891. This 1891 image shows the Briceville Coal Mining Camp in Anderson County, Tennessee, captured during the Coal Creek War. Tents stretch across the valley, sheltering miners and families caught in labor struggles. The scene reflects the harsh realities of industrial conflict, where survival and dignity clashed with power and profit. Street Railway in Nashville, 1891. Captured in 1891, this photo shows one of Nashville's early electric streetcars, crowded with passengers outside a downtown building. The scene reflects a city in transition, where tradition met modernity on its busy streets. Streetcars symbolized progress, connecting neighborhoods and shaping the rhythm of daily life in a growing Tennessee capital. School Gathering in Cannon County, 1891. Taken in Cannon County in January 1891, this rare photograph shows a large group of children and adults assembled outside a modest wooden schoolhouse. Faces stern yet proud, they embody the rural spirit of Tennessee, where community, education, and resilience wove the fabric of daily life at the turn of the century.
Belmont University Tower, 1890. Standing proudly in the late 19th century, the Belmont University Tower rises above manicured gardens and shaded paths in Nashville. Built as a symbol of education and refinement, it became one of the city's most recognizable landmarks. This 1890 view captures the tranquil beauty of the campus and its historic character. First electric streetcar run, Nashville, 1889. In 1889, Nashville celebrated progress with the inaugural run of its first electric streetcar at 16th Avenue and Broad Street. Crowds gathered in excitement as the modern streetcar replaced older horse-drawn systems, marking a new era of transportation. This milestone reflected the city's rapid growth and urban transformation. Wheat Community, Oak Ridge, 1877. This rare 1877 photograph captures the wheat community near Oak Ridge, Tennessee. In the background stands the Wheat School and the white home of George Jones, framed by rolling hills and farmland. A quiet moment frozen in time, it reflects the resilience and simplicity of Appalachian life in the late 19th century.
Knoxville's Early Landmarks, 1872. This rare 1872 view of Knoxville captures the city's growing skyline. Churches, hotels, and the old roundhouse stand as symbols of a town balancing faith, commerce, and industry. Each handwritten note marks a story: residences, railroads, and gathering places, revealing how Knoxville began weaving its identity into Tennessee's history. Hollowell family in Beersheba Springs, Tennessee, 1870. The Hollowell family gathered in their Beersheba Springs home, illuminated by lamplight. The log walls, modest furnishings, and solemn faces reflect the quiet strength of Appalachian families. This intimate scene captures not just a household, but the endurance of tradition and family unity in Tennessee's mountain communities of the 19th century. Downtown Johnson City, 1870. In 1870, Johnson City was just beginning to emerge as a railroad town in eastern Tennessee. This downtown view shows a modest but bustling corner where horses and carriages lined the streets and shopkeepers stood proudly by their storefronts. The scene captures the humble origins of a city soon to thrive. Main Street, Memphis, 1870. This 1870 view of Main Street in Memphis captures a bustling post-Civil War city. Horse-drawn carriages and well-dressed pedestrians crowd the busy intersection, framed by tall brick buildings and early streetcar tracks. Memphis was rebuilding rapidly, fueled by river trade and cotton commerce, shaping its role as a vital southern hub.
Woodruff Store on Gay Street, Knoxville, 1869. In 1869, Gay Street in Knoxville bustled with merchants, wagons, and hopeful pioneers. Woodruff Store stood as a landmark of commerce, its wooden signs catching the sun above crowded sidewalks. Here, trade thrived, voices mingled, and the city's future whispered through every brick and board. Chattanooga Depot, Nashville, 1865. This 1865 image of the Chattanooga Depot in Nashville captures the pulse of a recovering city after the Civil War. Freight cars, wagons, and modest buildings show a hub of commerce and movement. The depot was more than a station, it was a symbol of Tennessee's resilience and its path to renewal. Rebuilt railroad at Strawberry Plains, 1864. In March 1864, the Strawberry Plains Railroad Ridge and the Flat Creek bridges stood rebuilt after being destroyed during the Civil War when Colonel William P. Sanders withdrew from Knoxville on June 20, 1863. These photographs capture both the elevated track and the sturdy stone supports rising again, symbols of resilience amid destruction. Railroads were lifelines of Tennessee, and their restoration marked survival, determination, and the unbroken will to move forward.
Chattanooga, 1864. Captured during the Civil War era, this 1864 photograph reveals an aerial view of Chattanooga, Tennessee. Nestled between rolling hills, the young city is dotted with wooden structures and dirt roads, poised between destruction and renewal. It was here that battles reshaped both landscapes and lives, marking Chattanooga's pivotal role in history. Photographed around 1864 by Matthew Brady's team, this view captures a wooden bridge spanning the Tennessee River at Chattanooga. Serving both military and civilian needs during the Civil War, the structure reflects the city's role as a vital crossroads. Soldiers, horses, and boats complete the scene of wartime infrastructure and survival. Captured in 1864 by George N. Barnard, this view shows the vast government stables in Chattanooga, a logistical hub during the Civil War. The long arched structure housed hundreds of horses essential for transport and supply lines. Behind it, rolling hills frame a scene where military necessity met the Tennessee landscape. Photographed in 1864, this image shows the Crutchfield House, once a grand hotel overlooking Chattanooga's rail lines. During the Civil War, its strategic location made it a landmark for soldiers and travelers alike. Though scarred by conflict, the building stood as a symbol of resilience amid turmoil.
Nashville from the Capitol, 1864. Captured by George N. Barnard, this photograph shows Nashville as seen from the state capitol during the Civil War. The cannons in the foreground remind us of the city's strategic role, while the sprawling rooftops in the distance reveal a community enduring conflict yet standing firm. Tennessee River at Bridgeport, 1864.
This view of the Tennessee River at Bridgeport shows a wooden railroad bridge stretching across calm waters. Built during the Civil War, such crossings were vital for troop and supply movements. The fragile structure, set against a vast landscape, symbolizes both the ingenuity and vulnerability of wartime infrastructure. The State House of Tennessee, Nashville, 1864. Standing atop Capitol Hill, the Tennessee State House in Nashville loomed as both a political and military landmark during the Civil War. Captured in 1864, this image shows the Greek Revival structure rising above a war-torn city. It symbolized resilience, governance, and the enduring spirit of a divided nation. The Office of the First Topographical Engineers, Chattanooga, 1863. This modest wooden structure in Chattanooga housed the Office of the First Topographical Engineers during the Civil War in 1863. Within its walls, maps were drawn and strategies shaped, guiding Union troops through Tennessee's rugged terrain. Though humble in appearance, it was a center of precision and military planning.
Supply steamers at Nashville, 1862. In 1862, Nashville's docks bustled with supply steamers lined side by side, their tall smokestacks cutting into the sky. These vessels were lifelines of the Union Army, carrying food, weapons, and men along the Cumberland River. The scene reflects the city's transformation into a vital wartime hub during the Civil War. First known photograph of Knoxville, 1859. Captured from the courthouse roof in 1859, this is Knoxville's earliest known photograph. Looking north, rooftops stretch toward wooded hills, where quiet streets and scattered homes spoke of a town still in its infancy. This rare image preserves a moment when Knoxville's future was only beginning to take shape. Gatlinburg gets its name, 1854. In 1854, the mountain hamlet once called White Oak Flats took on a new name, Gatlinburg. Nestled in the Smoky Mountains, the town grew from a quiet settlement into a vibrant community. Known as a land of paradise, it became a gateway to the beauty and history of East Tennessee.
Market Street, Nashville, 1850. Believed to be the oldest known photograph of Nashville, this 1850 view of Market Street reveals a bustling city at the dawn of its growth. Wagons, storefronts, and dirt roads capture a community alive with commerce and ambition, foreshadowing the transformation that would make Nashville a vital southern crossroads. The Ogle Store, Gatlinburg, 1850. Opened in 1850 by Noah Ogle, Gatlinburg's first recorded merchant, this modest store became the foundation of local commerce. Later evolving into the Riverside Hotel site, it stood as a hub for trade and community life. Its legacy carried forward by generations of the Ogle family, shaping Gatlinburg's early history. Murfreesboro Public Square, 1850. The oldest known photograph of Murfreesboro's public square, taken in 1850, wagons, horses, and townsfolk animate the south side, with storefronts like Hyman & Co. and early groceries marking the scene. This square later witnessed the turbulence of the Civil War, making this image a rare glimpse of its quieter days.
Tennessee's past is not just ink on paper or shadows in old frames. It is breath, struggle, and hope preserved in silver and stone. As you leave these images tonight, carry with you the whispers of a land that shaped dreams, still alive in the silence of history's gaze.
A journey through 19th century Virginia, booming cities, landscapes shaped by war, and moments frozen in time. Each image reveals more than just a setting. It's a silent testament to lives that changed American history. Prepare to see Virginia like you've never seen it before.
S. J. Gilpin Shoe Store, Richmond, 1899. This photograph captures the storefront of S.J. Gilpin's shoe shop in Richmond, Virginia. A mail carrier and several men pose proudly at the entrance, framed by rows of displayed shoes. The image preserves a glimpse of small-town commerce at the turn of the century, where craftsmanship met community. Richmond Steam Laundry, 1899. This photograph depicts the Richmond Steam Laundry, a bustling business at the dawn of modern services. Two horse-drawn wagons stand outside, while workers, including African-American employees, pose for the camera. The image reflects both progress and inequality, revealing the central role of labor in Virginia's urban transformation. Students at Hampton Institute, Hampton, 1899. At the Hampton Institute, agricultural science students operate a cheese press screw during a lesson. The classroom, filled with equipment and focused young minds, reflects the school's mission of practical education. This image captures a transformative moment when knowledge and skill empowered new generations toward progress and independence. VPI football team, Virginia Tech, 1898. This photograph shows the Virginia Agricultural and Mechanical College and Polytechnic Institute, now Virginia Tech, football team. Lined up in early gear, the players strike a determined pose, embodying the rugged spirit of America's young college sports. The image reflects the rise of athletics as tradition and pride.
Ruins of the University of Virginia Rotunda Annex, 1895. This photograph shows the charred ruins of the University of Virginia's Rotunda Annex after a devastating fire. Spectators gather among the blackened walls and collapsed roof, witnessing the loss of a landmark. The image captures both destruction and resilience as the university prepared to rebuild its architectural and academic heart. Launching of USS Nashville, Newport News, 1895. The ceremonial launching of the gunboat USS Nashville at Newport News Shipbuilding in Virginia. Emma Thompson, the ship's sponsor, christens the vessel as officials and onlookers gather around. The moment reflects both industrial progress and patriotic pride, marking Newport News as a rising center of naval power. City Hall in downtown Alexandria, Virginia, 1890. The Grand City Hall of Alexandria, Virginia, its brick facade and towering steeple standing proudly in the heart of the city. The structure reflects late 19th century civic ambition, blending function with architectural grace. Streets lie quiet, yet the building symbolizes authority, growth, and a community's enduring identity. Morrison Drug Store, Rural Retreat, 1890. This photograph shows the Morrison Drug Store in Rural Retreat, Virginia. Townspeople gather outside the brick building, a focal point of community life. More than a pharmacy, such stores served as social and commercial hubs, blending medicine, trade, and conversation at the heart of small-town daily experience.
University of Virginia Chapel. This 1889 photograph shows the newly completed University of Virginia Chapel, its Gothic architecture rising proudly beside the rotunda grounds. The stone walls, pointed arches, and tall bell tower reflect the era's devotion to tradition and faith. The image preserves a moment when the campus expanded with spiritual purpose. Huntington's first electric streetcar. This 1888 photograph captures Huntington's first electric streetcar traveling along 3rd Avenue. The trolley, gleaming with modern promise, passes by brick storefronts advertising clothing and shoes. Crowds gather to witness the new invention, a symbol of progress and urban transformation. The moment marks the city's leap into a modern future. First photograph of the Rotunda, 1868. The University of Virginia's Rotunda was captured in one of the earliest known images of the campus. Taken just after the Civil War, the salted paper print reveals Jefferson's vision still standing, surrounded by fences and trees, symbolizing resilience and rebirth in a fractured nation. Union Wagon Train in Petersburg, Virginia.
This photograph captures a Union wagon train entering Petersburg, Virginia in 1865 during the final year of the Civil War. The long line of covered wagons moves through a weary town scarred by conflict. Church steeples and brick buildings stand silent, witnessing the slow march of history's turning point.
Pontoon Bridge over the James River, Richmond. In 1865, as the Civil War neared its end, a pontoon bridge stretched across the James River at Richmond. Wagons and soldiers crossed the fragile structure, linking divided shores. The calm water reflects a moment of transition where improvised engineering carried both supplies and hope toward a reunited nation. The Governor's Mansion, Richmond. Photographed in 1865, the Governor's Mansion in Richmond stands as a symbol of authority amid the aftermath of war. Soldiers and civilians gather along its tree-lined approach, their presence reflecting both tension and curiosity. The stately building, framed by towering trees, embodies continuity in a capital shaken by defeat and change. General Washington's Headquarters, Richmond, 1865. This Civil War-era photograph depicts the building believed to have served as General George Washington's headquarters in Richmond. Modest wooden walls and bare trees frame the scene, where figures stand quietly outside. The image links revolutionary memory to Civil War turmoil, preserving a site layered with leadership and national struggle.
City Point, Virginia, Union Supply Base. These four photographs capture City Point, Virginia, between 1861 and 1865, a critical Union supply hub on the James River. Images show crowded docks filled with ships, wharves lined with warehouses, and damaged piers revealing the strain of constant use. One view depicts the quartermaster's headquarters, the heart of logistical operations. City Point became one of the busiest ports of the Civil War, sustaining Grant's armies during the Petersburg Campaign. Amid ships, timber, and hurried construction, the photographs reveal both the fragility and power of wartime infrastructure, preserving a site where victory was supplied as much as fought. Barracks at Alexandria, 1865. This photograph shows the long rows of military barracks in Alexandria, Virginia. Soldiers gather outside the whitewashed buildings, their figures scattered across the yard. The scene reflects both routine and readiness as Alexandria became a key Union stronghold. These barracks symbolize the city's transformation into a fortified hub. Falls Church, Virginia, 1865. This Civil War photograph depicts Falls Church, Virginia, its brick structure standing among bare trees. Horses and riders wait nearby, suggesting the building's use as both landmark and shelter during wartime movements. The quiet scene masks the turmoil of conflict, preserving a place where faith and community endured amid uncertainty.
Stoneman's Station, Virginia, 1865. Stoneman's Station in Virginia, a key supply and transportation hub. Long wooden structures stretch across the landscape, surrounded by piles of cut timber and scattered wagons. The image reflects the immense logistical efforts that sustained armies, turning quiet countryside into centers of movement, storage, and survival. View of Richmond. This 1865 photograph, taken by Alexander Gardner, presents a sweeping view of Richmond after the Civil War. The city stretches across rolling hills, with houses, factories, and church steeples rising in the distance. Though scarred by conflict, the image conveys resilience, showing a capital slowly reclaiming stability after devastation. Custom House in Richmond, 1865. This photograph shows the Custom House in Richmond after the city's evacuation. The imposing stone structure stands intact amid surrounding devastation, its classical design symbolizing endurance. Once a hub for commerce, the building survived fire and war, embodying both continuity and the scars left by conflict. Sanitary Commission Headquarters in Richmond, 1865.
The Sanitary Commission headquarters in Richmond, Virginia, the large brick building served as a center for medical aid and relief during the Civil War's closing months. Crowds gather outside, symbolizing the desperate need for care, order, and recovery in a war-torn capital city.
Richmond, looking toward Manchester. Captured by Alexander Gardner in 1865, this sweeping view of Richmond looks toward Manchester across the James River. The rooftops and chimneys dominate the horizon, reflecting a city scarred by war yet standing resilient. The perspective conveys both devastation and the fragile promise of renewal after the Civil War's end. Harper's Ferry after the war. Captured in July 1865 by James Gardner, this view of Harper's Ferry reveals the scars of war etched into the valley. Once a strategic crossing, the town bore witness to repeated clashes and occupations. The calm river contrasts with the silent ruins, marking both devastation and survival in Virginia's landscape. Belle Plaine, Potomac River, Upper Wharf. These two photographs from 1864 reveal the Union supply base at Belle Plaine, Virginia, along the Potomac River. One view shows rows of wagons, tents, and encampments stretching across open ground, the landscape transformed into a lifeline for armies. The other captures the crowded wharf, where steamboats and barges jostle for space, unloading supplies and troops vital to the war effort. Together, the images portray Belle Plaine as a hub of military logistics, where industry and strategy converged. Amid mud, smoke, and restless waters, the site embodies the immense effort required to sustain campaigns deep into Confederate territory.
Aquia Creek Landing, Stafford, Virginia, 1864. At Aquia Creek Landing, the U.S. Army's Quartermaster Corps managed a lifeline of supplies during the Civil War. Captured in 1864, the photo shows sailing ships anchored on the Potomac River, with railroad tracks in the foreground carrying food, munitions, and medical provisions to the Union front. Provost Marshal's Office, Aquia Creek, Virginia, 1863. The Provost Marshal's Office at Aquia Creek, Virginia, a vital Union outpost during the Civil War. Soldiers and civilians gather outside the wooden building where military law and order were enforced. The muddy ground, rough timbers, and crowded scene reveal the hardships of wartime administration. Fredericksburg, Virginia. This 1863 photograph by Andrew Joseph Russell depicts Fredericksburg, Virginia, scarred by war. The city lies beyond the Rappahannock River, with pontoon bridges crossing the water and ruins scattered along the shoreline. Once a thriving town, Fredericksburg became a battlefield, its image here reflecting devastation, survival, and the heavy toll of conflict. Union encampment in Culpeper. Photographed by Timothy H. O'Sullivan in November 1863, this view of Culpeper shows rows of Union tents stretching across the fields. The town became a hub for troop movements during the Civil War. Its quiet countryside transformed into a sprawling military camp, symbolizing both order and the looming chaos of battle.
Alexandria, the crossroads of the Civil War. This panoramic view of Alexandria in 1862 shows the city at the height of its Civil War importance. Known as the crossroads of the Civil War, Alexandria served as a hub of hospitals, supply routes, and military control. Its streets carried both the chaos of conflict and the weight of survival. Train on the Orange and Alexandria Railroad. In 1862, a locomotive steams along the Orange and Alexandria Railroad in Virginia, vital for transporting troops and supplies during the Civil War. A man sits in the grass watching the iron horse pass, symbolizing the collision of old rural life with the unstoppable march of industrial progress. Wrecked Orange and Alexandria Railroad, Manassas. Photographed in March 1862, This image shows the Orange and Alexandria Railroad in ruins after retreating Confederates sabotaged it at Manassas, Virginia. Shattered tracks and scattered wheels mark the devastation. Soldiers stand amid the wreckage, silent witnesses to the destructive toll of war on progress and infrastructure.
Military Railroad at Bull Run, Centerville. This 1861 photograph shows Union soldiers seated by the Bull Run stream near Centerville, Virginia, during the early stages of the Civil War. Behind them, a makeshift military railroad bridge spans the water, fragile yet vital. The quiet moment contrasts with the battlefield nearby, where history's course was fiercely contested. Marshall House, Alexandria. Photographed by Egbert Guy Fawkes in 1861, the Marshall House in Alexandria, Virginia, carries a tragic legacy from the opening days of the Civil War. It was here that Union Colonel Elmer Ellsworth was killed while removing a Confederate flag, an event that shocked the nation and inflamed both Northern and Southern passions. The Firefly Engine, Gordonsville. In 1860, the Firefly locomotive of the Orange and Alexandria Railway crosses a wooden trestle near Gordonsville, Virginia. Balanced on timbers and stonework, the iron engine embodies the daring spirit of early railroads. A man stands below the bridge, dwarfed by the machinery that was reshaping America's landscapes and connections. With each photograph, Virginia comes alive before our eyes, not just as a battlefield, but as a space of memory, resistance, and transformation. These images are not just ancient records, they are windows into a past that still breathes and continues to resonate in the American soul.
Step into Washington's earliest days, where coal towns rose in rugged valleys, pioneers carved homes along wild rivers, and the first governor took his oath beneath a wooden dome. These rare photographs transport us to a frontier state just finding its voice, rooted in resilience, ambition, and untamed beauty.
Leschi Park, Seattle, 1899. Seattle's Leschi Park opened onto the waters of Lake Washington, with winding paths and wooden piers that invited leisure. On this spring day of 1899, visitors strolled calmly, framed by evergreens and simple structures. It was a glimpse of serenity in a rapidly modernizing city. Ticket office for steamer Greyhound, Everett, 1899. This modest wooden ticket office in Everett served passengers boarding the steamer Greyhound for the Seattle-Everett route. Families, workers, and travelers gathered with bicycles and baggage awaiting the journey. The building's simple form reflected an era when steam travel was the lifeline connecting Puget Sound's growing towns. Old Capitol Building and Sylvester Park, Olympia, 1899. The Old Capitol Building, completed in 1892, stands proudly in Olympia's skyline, its Romanesque revival style marking the ambitions of Washington's young statehood. Once the Thurston County Courthouse, it later served as the Capitol from 1905 to 1929. In front, Sylvester Park offered townspeople a peaceful gathering place. Pioneer Square, Seattle. In 1896, Pioneer Square stood as the bustling heart of early Seattle, where wooden docks met brick buildings and commerce flowed with the tide. Steamships crowded the waterfront, carrying timber, goods, and hopeful settlers. This place, still vibrant today, was once the city's frontier stage of ambition and grit.
Looking north at Front Street from James Street, Seattle, 1895. Front Street, now called First Avenue, appears here as a symbol of Seattle's rebirth after the Great Fire of 1889. Brick facades, streetcars, and pedestrians filled the scene, reflecting a city in motion. Commerce, energy, and resilience combine, marking the dawn of a stronger, modern Seattle.
The Denny Hotel, Seattle, 1895. Perched on Denny Hill, the Denny Hotel stood as a grand but unfinished dream. Construction was halted by the Panic of 1893, leaving its turrets looming over the city like a silent castle. Later revived as the Washington Hotel, it became a symbol of Seattle's resilience and ambition. Madison Street Cable Railway Company Barn, Seattle, 1890. This wooden powerhouse and barn stored Seattle's cable cars, a leap beyond horse-drawn streetcars. With tall windows and a chimney rising above, the structure symbolized innovation and growth. It was here that the city's expanding network of rail lines found its strength, fueling daily life and urban transformation. Train Depot, Franklin, Washington, 1890. In the coal-rich Green River Gorge, Franklin thrived as a mining town. This photo captures a train at the depot around 1890 with wooden houses scattered on the hillside. The mine fueled Seattle's growing industry, but the town itself would fade into history, later absorbed into Green River Gorge State Park.
Colfax, Washington, looking north, 1889. Nestled in the rolling hills of Whitman County, Colfax appears as a growing frontier town in this 1889 view. Wooden homes and small businesses cluster near the Palouse River, with farmland stretching into the horizon. The scene captures a community balancing rural life with the promise of expansion. LeConner, Washington, 1889. This 1889 view of LeConner shows a modest waterfront town framed by evergreens. Wooden buildings line the shoreline, with docks reaching into the water, a reminder of the settlement's deep connection to trade and fishing. The quiet scene reflects both isolation and resilience in early Skagit Valley life. Olympia, Washington, 1889. This historic photo captures the inauguration of Elisha P. Ferry, the first governor of Washington, in Olympia, 1889. A crowd gathers on horseback and on foot outside the territorial capital, decorated with flags for the ceremony. The moment marks Washington's first step into statehood, filled with pride and anticipation. Aftermath of the Great Seattle Fire, 1889. The ruins of the Great Seattle Fire stretched across downtown in 1889. Sparked by a carpenter's glue pot, the inferno devoured blocks of wooden buildings. When the flames finally died, nearly the entire business district lay in ashes, forcing Seattle to rebuild stronger, this time in brick and stone.
Tacoma, Washington, 1888. Perched on the hillside, Tacoma spreads out in neat rows of homes, churches, and wooden buildings overlooking the harbor. This late 19th century view shows a city rapidly expanding, driven by the Northern Pacific Railroad and its thriving port. The steep terrain framed a bustling town, eager to define its place in Washington's future. Main Street, Olympia, 1887. Looking south along Olympia's Main Street, the scene captures a lively town on the rise. Wooden storefronts line the unpaved road, where horses, buggies, and streetcar tracks share space with townsfolk and even stray dogs. Telegraph poles signal progress as Olympia grows into Washington's capital city. First Avenue and James Street, Seattle, 1886. In 1886, the heart of Seattle bustled with horse-drawn streetcars clattering down First Avenue. For just a nickel, riders could travel across the young city, pulled by steady horses along 3 miles of track. This early transit system became a symbol of progress and modern convenience for Seattle's residents. Port Townsend, Washington, 1885. This elevated view of Port Townsend around 1885 looks down Adams Street toward the harbor. Rows of wooden homes and businesses line the hillside, reflecting the town's growth during the territorial period.
Positioned along Puget Sound, Port Townsend was already becoming a vital maritime hub of Washington Territory.
Blackman Bros. General Store, Snohomish, Washington, 1885. This photograph captures the Blackman Brothers General Store at the corner of First Street and Avenue C in Snohomish. Around 1885, the store was a vital hub for local residents, offering hardware and supplies to a growing lumber town. Wagons, horses, and townsfolk gather outside, reflecting daily life in early Washington. Waterman and Cott's Mercantile Store, Port Townsend, Washington, 1885. This early storefront of Waterman and Cott's, founded in 1862, reflects Port Townsend's thriving mercantile trade. 2 horse teams with carts stand ready outside, serving William Lausbach and Ben Shortswood's establishment. The scene captures a bustling moment of commerce, where goods and wagons linked the frontier town to wider markets. Scamoqua, Washington, 1885. A riverside community nestled between forested hills and the Columbia River, Scamoqua thrived on timber and river trade. Sawmills and docks line the waterfront, where logs float downstream and small boats navigate the channel. This view captures the harmony of industry and settlement shaping frontier life in the Pacific Northwest. Main Street, Colfax, Washington, 1885. A wide dirt road stretches into the horizon, lined with wooden storefronts on both sides. Businesses advertise wagons and goods, while planks and timber lay scattered across the center of the street. The scene reflects a raw, growing frontier town where commerce and settlement shaped life in Washington's Palouse country.
Wilcox, Whitman County, Washington, 1885. In the small town of Wilcox, teams of horses pull heavy wagons along a wide dirt road. Modest wooden houses stand in neat rows against the rolling hills, a backdrop to the steady rhythm of frontier life. The scene captures the resilience of settlers building new roots in Washington's countryside. Crane Saloon, Walla Walla, 1885. This photograph captures the Crane Saloon in Walla Walla around 1885, with a group of men and a woman posed outside its entrance. Owned by Robert Crane, chief engineer of the fire department, the saloon was both a gathering place and a landmark of frontier life in Washington Territory. 8th Street, Hoquiam, 1884. This photograph of Hoquiam around 1884 shows 8th Street, lined with tall false front buildings, including the New York store. Wooden sidewalks and telegraph poles flank the muddy road, where horse-drawn wagons once passed. The scene reflects the rapid transformation of this lumber town as commerce and industry carved permanence into Washington's rugged coast. Columbia Street in Snow, Seattle, 1883. This rare winter scene captures Columbia Street in downtown Seattle, blanketed by snow in 1883. Children and townspeople gather in the middle of the road, framed by rows of early wooden storefronts. The heavy snowfall turns a bustling commercial street into a frozen tableau, a reminder of the town's rugged frontier beginnings. Logs being loaded onto a ship, Seattle, 1880. In the 1880s, Seattle's waterfront echoed with the thunder of timber trade. Towering logs, felled from nearby forests, were hauled onto ships bound for distant markets. Logging fueled the city's growth, but danger lurked in every task. Heavy timbers, sharp saws, and perilous docks claimed lives. Downtown from Denny Hill, Seattle, 1880. This sweeping view from Denny Hill shows a young Seattle rising from the forested landscape. Wooden houses and scattered streets stretch toward Elliott Bay, foreshadowing a city destined for transformation. Within a decade, engineers would reshape this very hill in the ambitious Denny regrade, forever altering Seattle's topography. Snow on Cherry Street, Seattle, 1880. A rare Seattle snowstorm blanketed Cherry Street with over 5 feet of snow, silencing the young city. Wooden storefronts leaned against the weight, while tracks in the white drifts revealed determined footsteps. This frozen moment captures a frontier town tested by nature long before skyscrapers reshaped its skyline. Tacoma, Washington, 1880. Early Tacoma rises on the edge of Puget Sound, its wooden houses clustered against the vast hillside beyond. Newly built streets cut through the settlement, lined with homes and small businesses. This young port city, still rough and raw, stood at the threshold of railroad expansion and maritime trade.
Colfax's North End, Washington, 1880. The photograph shows Colfax's North End, a frontier town nestled along rolling hills. Wooden cabins and businesses cluster around the valley, while a railroad line cuts through the center, symbolizing growth. Colfax, still rustic yet promising, embodied the transformation of Washington Territory into a hub of farming and commerce. Colfax, seen from the western hillside, Washington, 1878. Seen from the western hillside, Colfax stretches along Main and Spring Streets during its territorial days. The Baldwin House Hotel stands prominently, a hub for travelers and commerce. Wooden storefronts and churches cluster tightly below the bare hillside, capturing a frontier town rising from wilderness into permanence. Old Town Hall, Olympia, 1875. Seen from Parker Place on 5th Street, Olympia's Old Town Hall rises above a line of dark evergreens. The simple white wooden structure with its cupola hints at civic pride in a young capital city. Surrounded by natural growth, the building reflects Washington's balance between wilderness and emerging governance. Seattle from 3rd Avenue and Pine Street, 1874. Looking southeast from 3rd Avenue and Pine Street, Seattle reveals its frontier beginnings. Small wooden houses line the hillside, while the Territorial University stands prominently at the left, overlooking the settlement. Forested slopes in the distance remind viewers of the untamed wilderness still pressing against this young city's edge.
Log Cabin School in Palouse, Washington, 1874. This rough-hewn log cabin housed the first school in the Palouse region, about 2 miles from town. Built with stacked timber and a dirt floor, it reflects the resilience of settlers. Teacher Sarah Hughes stands proudly outside, embodying the spirit of frontier education and the hope for a future. 1st Avenue, Seattle, 1874. Looking north from the New England Hotel, Seattle's 1st Avenue in 1874 appears muddy and raw, lined with wooden storefronts and saloons. On the right, the Pony Saloon marks the lively character of the frontier town. Beyond the rough street, trees crown the hills, framing a settlement still in formation. View from 3rd Avenue and Pike Street, Seattle, 1873. Seattle's landscape in 1873 unfolds from this elevated view, dotted with wooden houses and dirt streets. In the distance, the Territorial University stands proudly, a symbol of progress on the frontier. The scene captures a growing town, balancing rugged simplicity with the first signs of civic ambition and permanence. Yesler Way and Yesler's Mill, Seattle, 1873. A plume of smoke rises high from Yesler's steam-powered sawmill, dominating the horizon of early Seattle. The dirt street is scattered with wood debris, a reminder of the city's rough beginnings. Simple storefronts line the road, while the mill itself stands as the engine of growth and transformation in Puget Sound.
Occidental Hotel from Occidental Ave S and S Main Street, Seattle, 1872. The Occidental Hotel rises prominently at the intersection, its sturdy wooden frame marking Seattle's early ambitions. The dirt road leading up to it is rough and uneven, with carts and wooden planks scattered across the ground. Modest houses surround the area, while the hotel itself stands as a landmark of frontier growth. East side of First Ave S between S. Washington Street and S. Main Street, Seattle, 1870. A lively row of storefronts lines the dirt street, their wooden facades advertising variety and household goods. Men in hats gather along the boardwalk, giving the street a sense of bustle. In the distance, Seattle's hillside rises with scattered homes, capturing the young city's growing commercial heart. Vicinity of 2nd Ave and Cherry Street, Seattle, 1869. In this early winter view, rough wooden cabins stand against a snowy hillside framed by tall evergreens. Carson Boren's 1852 cedar cabin once marked this spot, later sold to W.N. Bell. The modest two-story structure seen here foreshadowed the future site of Seattle's Hogue Building. Yesler's Cookhouse, Seattle, 1866. Built from hewed logs in 1853, Yesler's Cookhouse became Seattle's first real gathering place. Here, pioneers shared meals, sang, laughed, prayed, and even held court sessions. Standing beside Yesler's mill, it pulsed with the life of a young town where settlers and native people still crossed daily paths.
Commercial Street looking north, Seattle, 1865. Seattle's Commercial Street in 1865 reflects a frontier town built on timber and ambition. Wooden storefronts, including Doc Maynard's hospital and early businesses, line the muddy road against a backdrop of tall evergreens. This modest street would become the foundation of a growing city, where resilience and trade shaped the future. First Avenue South from Washington Street, Seattle, 1865. Looking north along First Avenue South in 1865, Seattle's frontier spirit is evident in its wooden storefronts and scattered homes. The muddy street carried the hopes of settlers carving out a town on Puget Sound. Behind the modest facades, a city of trade, resilience, and ambition was quietly taking root. Early buildings in Mukilteo, Washington, 1862. Perched above Puget Sound, Mukilteo's earliest buildings stood as markers of a settlement in transition. These wooden structures belonged to the first pioneers who shaped Snohomish County's history. By 1861, Mukilteo briefly served as county seat before it shifted to Snohomish, leaving behind these weathered homes that still whispered beginnings.
Street scene, Port Townsend, Washington, 1862. This early photograph captures Port Townsend's growing Main Street, lined with hotels and businesses that promised opportunity on the edge of Puget Sound. Wooden storefronts faced muddy roads where townsfolk gathered, reflecting a community still shaping its identity. Each signboard and doorway told stories of ambition, resilience, and frontier trade. Yesler Residence, Seattle, 1860. Henry Yesler's sawmill transformed Seattle's future, marking the city's first steam-powered mill on Puget Sound. His home stood nearby, overlooking timber, rough roads, and the growing settlement. Beyond milling, Yesler shaped Seattle's landscape through real estate and trade, anchoring a frontier town destined to become a bustling Pacific city. Fort Vancouver, Washington Territory, 1859. In 1859, Fort Vancouver stood as a remote yet vital outpost in the Pacific Northwest. Its wooden structures rose against the evergreen forest, housing traders, settlers, and soldiers. Once the Hudson's Bay Company's hub, it later became a U.S. Army post, anchoring America's expansion into the region.
From Franklin's coal trains to Olympia's first statehood ceremony, these images remind us that Washington's story was born from determination and daring. In their faded tones, we see courage carved into mountains and communities bound by hope. These aren't just photographs, they are windows into the soul of a new state.
Step into Arizona's past, where dusty streets echoed with lawmen's footsteps and the desert sippered untold stories. From cattle ranches and mining towns to the legendary clash at the OK Corral, these rare photographs unlock a world of courage, conflict, and survival in the unforgiving frontier of the American West.
Commercial growth in Jerome, 1900. Jerome had grown from a mining camp into a bustling town. This photograph shows solid brick commercial buildings, including the New York store, with residents gathered at the entrance. The sturdy architecture reflected prosperity, as copper wealth turned Jerome into one of Arizona's most important industrial centers. Tucson's The Wedge, 1900. This photograph shows The Wedge on Congress Street in downtown Tucson, a busy crossroads framed by Meyer and Church Avenues. Known as part of the Red Light District, the area bustled with shops, saloons, and vice, reflecting the raw, unpolished character of frontier Arizona's growing towns. Tucson's Congress Street Trolley, 1900. Tucson embraced modern transit with its electric trolley running along Congress Street. Horses and wagons still share the dusty road, but the streetcar signaled progress and connection. Storefronts, striped awnings, and telegraph poles frame the scene, capturing a pivotal moment as Arizona towns stepped into the 20th century. Old Main at Northern Arizona University, 1900. On January 1, 1900, students gathered in front of Old Main, the first building of what would become Northern Arizona University in Flagstaff. With its pointed towers and sturdy brickwork, Old Main stood as a beacon of education in the Arizona Territory, symbolizing ambition and progress at the dawn of a new century.
Tucson's Patriotic Parade, 1899. On July 4, 1899, Tucson celebrated Independence Day with this striking patriotic float. Dozens of young women, dressed in sashes and holding American flags, ride on a wagon draped in stars and stripes. Pulled by horses, the scene reflects civic pride and Arizona's deepening ties to national identity before statehood. Building Tucson's Elks Lodge, 1899. In early 1899, workers constructed the Tucson Elks Lodge at Court and Pennington. Scaffolds and ladders framed the rising brick structure, while masons and laborers paused for the camera. The imposing design marked Tucson's growth, reflecting civic pride and the ambition to transform a frontier town into a lasting city. Mesa's Main Street emerges 1899. This 1899 photograph captures one of the first views of Mesa's Main Street. The Farmers Exchange stands proudly, with the Zeno's Co-op brick building at the edge. Signs for groceries and local markets reflect a town finding its rhythm as commerce and community began shaping Arizona's desert frontier. Flagstaff's Early Streets, 1899. In this view of Flagstaff, Arizona Territory, the post office and stone buildings stand against a backdrop of pine-covered mountains. Townspeople gather on porches and dirt roads, a frontier community taking shape. Captured by G. Ben Whittick, the photo reflects both rugged isolation and hopeful permanence.
Phoenix with Camelback Mountain, 1898. From the Adams Hotel rooftop in 1898, this view of Phoenix stretches northeast toward Camelback Mountain. Adobe houses and simple brick buildings dominate the scene, shaded by scattered trees. The quiet streets and low skyline capture a city in its infancy, poised to grow into Arizona's desert metropolis. Tucson volunteers for the Spanish-American War, 1898. In 1898, volunteer soldiers gathered near the Orendorff Hotel in Tucson before departing for the Spanish-American War. Dressed in a mix of uniforms and civilian clothes, they posed together under the desert sun. The photo captures both camaraderie and uncertainty as Arizona men prepared to serve far beyond their frontier home.
Snake priests at Walpi Pueblo, 1897. Around 1897, crowds gathered at the Hopi Pueblo of Walpi, Arizona, to witness the snake dance ceremony. Dozens of snake priests, wearing kilts and animal pelts, stood in solemn line before the kiva. Spectators, both native and Anglo, watched from rooftops as ancient spiritual traditions unfolded in the stark desert landscape. Ore teams in Pinal County, 1897. Long lines of wagons creak along a dusty desert road in Pinal County, each pulled by straining teams of mules hauling ore from Arizona's mines. The rugged hills loom around them, silent witnesses to the labor and grit that fueled an industry shaping both fortunes and frontier survival.
Geronimo departs from Fort Bowie, 1895. This 1895 photograph captures Geronimo leaving Fort Bowie, Arizona, for exile in Florida. Surrounded by soldiers and onlookers, the legendary Apache leader faced the end of his resistance. The moment marked both sorrow and surrender, as one of the Southwest's most iconic figures departed his homeland under military escort. Vaqueros at Empire Ranch, 1890. Around 1890, vaqueros, Mexican cowboys, posed at the Empire Ranch in Arizona, a hub of cattle drives across the Southwest. These men had driven 500 head of cattle from the ranch to California, embodying the grit and skill of frontier ranching. Their presence reflects Arizona's deep ties to Hispanic cowboy traditions. Fairbank, Arizona, 1890. Fairbank bustled with life as storefronts stretched along a dusty street, townsfolk gathering in the shade while wagons rattled through. Once a key supply hub for Tombstone's mines, the settlement carried the restless energy of Arizona's boomtown era. Santa Fe Eating House, Kingman, 1890. Steam rises from the locomotive as travelers pause at Kingman's Santa Fe Eating House, a welcome stop along the expanding railroad. The sturdy brick station bustles with movement, hats, long coats, and curious faces, while the desert town grows around the tracks, tied to the rhythm of trains that connected Arizona to the nation. Lehigh settlers building Mesa's future, 1890. In this photograph, early Lehigh settlers struggle against Arizona's harsh landscape. They cleared rugged land, restored ancient canals, and built irrigation to survive. With horses, wagons, and sheer determination, they laid the foundation for Mesa's growth, carving a community out of dust, rock, and relentless sun. Picnic at Sabino Canyon, 1890. In 1890, well-dressed Tucson residents gathered for a picnic in scenic Sabino Canyon. Perched on rocks and shaded by trees, men in suits and women in patterned gowns posed for the camera, some with guitars in hand. The image captures leisure and community against Arizona's rugged natural beauty. Tucson and St. Augustine Cathedral, 1890. This panoramic view of Tucson around 1890 highlights the second church of St. Augustine, visible at the left. Rows of adobe and brick buildings stretch across the desert plain, smoke rising faintly in the distance. The scene reflects a city expanding from its Spanish-Mexican roots into a growing American frontier.
San Francisco Mountain from Flagstaff, 1888. Log cabins and wooden fences scatter across the open field as Flagstaff's early settlement stands beneath the towering San Francisco Mountain. Smoke drifts faintly on the horizon while pine forests frame the distant peak. Life here balanced isolation with breathtaking beauty, where every sunrise revealed Arizona's vast and untamed frontier. Military Parade in Phoenix, 1888. This photograph shows a grand military parade marching down Phoenix's Main Street. Soldiers on horseback lead the procession, while crowds line wooden sidewalks beneath decorated banners. The bustling scene captures a young Arizona city asserting pride and unity years before statehood transformed the desert territory into a nation's frontier. Carrillo Gardens, Tucson, 1887. This 1887 photograph shows families enjoying Carrillo Gardens on South Main Avenue in Tucson. Created by Leopoldo Carrillo, the park featured a pond with rowboats, a restaurant, and even a dance hall. Beloved for its ice cream and leisure, it became a landmark of community life in Arizona's desert capital. Parade on Pennington Street, Tucson, 1887. In 1887, Tucson honored General Nelson A. Miles with a parade on Pennington Street after his defeat of Apache leader Geronimo. Crowds filled the dusty road as soldiers, banners, and horsemen passed by. The Tucson Opera House and original Pima County Courthouse framed the scene, symbolizing civic pride in turbulent times.
Flagstaff's first public school, 1887. Children and teachers gather proudly outside a simple wooden schoolhouse in Flagstaff, their faces turned to the camera in neat rows. Surrounded by pine country, this modest building represented more than lessons. It was a promise of permanence, a place where frontier families invested in knowledge for Arizona's future generations. Officers at Fort Verde, 1887. Mounted soldiers pose with their packed mules at Fort Verde, a reminder of the military's reach across Arizona territory. Their uniforms, steady gazes, and disciplined posture reflect both authority and vulnerability on a rugged frontier. Behind them, the fort served as a base in campaigns against Apache resistance. Geronimo and his warriors, 1886. Geronimo stands at the right, flanked by his closest fighters, their long rifles resting firmly in hand. Determined eyes and traditional dress reflect the defiance of Apache warriors in their final struggle against U.S. forces. This image preserves the intensity of a people unwilling to surrender their homeland without resistance. Charleston, Arizona, 1885. Wooden buildings stretch across the desert floor in Charleston, a mining town that pulsed with life during the silver boom near Tombstone. Dusty streets cut between saloons, homes, and shops, framed by barren hills in the distance. The settlement thrived briefly, then faded into memory as the mines declined.
Congress Street in Tucson, 1884. This 1884 view of Congress Street near Church Street shows Tucson as a modest frontier town. Wooden storefronts with signs for goods and saloons line the unpaved road, while distant hills rise in the background. Dusty, rugged, and raw, the street reflected Arizona's early blend of commerce and survival. Jerome, Arizona, mining town, 1883. This photograph reveals the early streets of Jerome, perched on the hills of Arizona territory. Rough wooden structures, saloons, and hotels line the dusty roads, serving miners drawn by copper's promise. The rugged settlement, clinging to the mountainside, grew into one of the West's most legendary boomtowns. The OK Corral, Heroes vs. Outlaws, the gunfight that made Tombstone immortal, 1881. Tombstone, Arizona was booming with silver wealth and lawless tension. The bustling streets carried the weight of opportunity and danger. Behind the saloons and stores, rivalries brewed between ranchers, rustlers, and lawmen. On October 26, 1881, the dusty air was thick with whispers of an inevitable showdown that would echo through history. Virgil Earp, the Marshal in command. Virgil Earp, Deputy U.S. Marshal and City Marshal of Tombstone, carried the responsibility of enforcing order. Threatened repeatedly by outlaws, he stood resolute. On this day, his decision to disarm the cowboys brought him face to face with danger. Calm, authoritative, and unwavering, Virgil would lead his brothers and ally into the defining gunfight of the Old West. Wyatt Earp, the central figure.
Wyatt Earp, assistant to his brother, became the enduring legend of the OK Corral. Though not the eldest, he embodied resolve and the will to impose justice in Tombstone. For decades, his role in this gunfight was told and retold, transforming Wyatt into a symbol of Western law and the mythic face of frontier justice itself. Morgan Earp, the younger brother. Morgan Earp, the youngest of the brothers, carried both determination and fire. Still in his 20s, he had endured constant threats from the cowboys, yet refused to stand down. On that October afternoon, he would fight side by side with his family, unaware that his life would soon be marked by bullets and vengeance. Doc Holliday, the deadly ally. Doc Holliday, gambler, dentist, and gunslinger, stood with the Earps. His loyalty to Wyatt was matched only by his deadly reputation with a pistol. Despite his failing health, Doc's courage was unshaken. Known for his quick temper and quicker draw, he walked into the OK Corral ready to face the cowboys without hesitation.
The Cowboys, Ike Clanton and the McLowrys. Ike Clanton, loud and reckless, stirred the conflict that would ignite the showdown. Alongside him were Frank and Tom McLowry, ranchers turned outlaws, and Billy Clanton, younger and brash. These cowboys had long threatened the Earps, angered by their interference in outlaw trade. Armed and defiant, they gathered in town, ignoring the marshal's orders. Billy Clanton, the young gun. Billy Clanton, barely 19, had a reputation for boldness beyond his years. His defiance made him both admired and reckless. On the day of the shootout, he faced seasoned lawmen with fearless determination. In moments, he would draw his gun and step into the crossfire that sealed his fate, leaving his name carved into Tombstone's legend. Frank and Tom McLowry, brothers in defiance. Frank and Tom McLowry stood by Billy Clanton, hardened by years of conflict on the frontier. To their supporters, they were wronged ranchers. To their enemies, ruthless outlaws. As the Earps approached, the McLowrys refused to surrender their arms. Within seconds, their defiance would place them at the deadly center of the OK Corral gunfight. The gunfight at the OK Corral. At 3 p.m. on October 26, 1881, the two sides met near the OK Corral. Virgil commanded the men to disarm. A hand twitched, a shot rang out, and chaos exploded. In less than half a minute, nearly 30 shots were fired. When the smoke lifted, Billy Clanton and the McLowry brothers lay dead. The aftermath, streets of Tombstone. The lifeless bodies of Billy Clanton and the McLowry brothers were displayed in the undertaker's window with a sign accusing the lawmen of murder. Hundreds attended their funeral procession. The gunfight split Tombstone's citizens. Were the cowboys victims or villains? For the Earps, it was not the end, but the beginning of bloodshed and legend.
Inside the American Grocery, Tucson, 1880. Around 1880, Adolf Steinfeld and others posed inside the American Grocery Co. in Tucson. Shelves overflow with goods, barrels, and bottles, while a Budweiser Lager beer sign hints at changing tastes. This intimate view of a frontier store reflects both local enterprise and the growing sophistication of Arizona's desert towns. The Old Corner Saloon, Tucson, 1880. This 1880 photo captures the Old Corner Saloon, run by Frank B. Corey in Tucson's red light district. Painted signs promised billiards and ice-cold lager beer, luring miners, travelers, and townsfolk alike. Simple yet lively, saloons like this were social hubs, shaping the rough character of Arizona's frontier communities. Congress Hall Saloon, Tucson, 1880. Inside Charles O. Brown's Congress Hall Saloon around 1880, polished wood counters gleam under ornate decor. Built with timber from the Santa Rita Mountains, the establishment was both elegant and rugged, requiring armed guards during construction. This iconic saloon lent its name to Congress Street, anchoring Tucson's social and civic life. St. Mary's Hospital, Tucson, 1880. This 1880 photograph shows the newly dedicated St. Mary's Hospital, founded by the Sisters of St. Joseph of Coronandel.
With just 12 beds, the mission-style building stood isolated in Tucson's desert landscape. It became a cornerstone of healthcare in southern Arizona, blending faith, service, and resilience on the frontier.
Congress Street, Tucson, 1880. This view of Congress Street around 1880 shows Tucson's bustling core between Church Avenue and Meyer Street. Signs advertise cigar stores, barber shops, and bakeries, while townsfolk gather along the narrow dirt road. Women in long dresses cross the street, capturing the daily rhythm of commerce and life in frontier Arizona. Kinnear Express Stagecoach, 1880. Horses stand ready as the Kinnear Express stagecoach prepares to depart from Tombstone toward Bisbee. Built with thick leather straps that soften the jolts of rough desert roads, the coach carried miners, travelers, and mail across southern Arizona. Its wheels turned through dust and danger, linking isolated camps to booming towns. Mason's Western Hotel, Contention City, 1880. Travelers pause outside Mason's Western Hotel, a modest stone and adobe inn in Contention City. With its simple sign and rugged facade, the hotel offered meals and lodging to miners, cowboys, and fortune seekers drawn to Arizona's silver boom. For many, it was a brief refuge before returning to the dust and uncertainty of frontier life. Millville, Arizona, 1880. Smoke rises from tall chimneys as Millville buzzes with the work of processing ore from nearby mines. Nestled along the San Pedro River, this industrial outpost turned raw rock into silver bullion, feeding the fortunes of towns like Tombstone. The clang of machinery echoed through the valley, a soundtrack to Arizona's silver rush.
Bisbee, Arizona, 1879. Nestled against the Mule Mountains, Bisbee was just beginning to stir with the promise of copper. Tents and rough cabins filled the valley floor as miners carved their futures from the rocky slopes. What started as a scattered camp would soon grow into one of Arizona's richest and most storied mining towns. Camp Grant, Arizona, 1870. Rows of adobe and wood structures stretch across the barren desert, forming Camp Grant. Built as a U.S. Army post, it served both as protection for settlers and as a base during conflicts with Apache groups. Its lonely silhouette against the open land reveals the stark isolation of frontier military life. Crossing the Salt River, Tempe, 1870. A wagon drawn by horses makes its way across the Salt River, reflecting in the still waters beneath the looming presence of Tempe Butte. This simple crossing point, long before bridges spanned the area, shows how settlers navigated Arizona's rugged landscapes, where every journey blended challenge, resilience, and breathtaking scenery. Tumacacori's Silent Walls, 1868. The crumbling facade of Tumacacori's old mission tells a story of faith, abandonment, and resilience. Once echoing with prayers, the adobe walls were later stripped by ranchers seeking timber, yet the core of the church endured. Even in ruins, it stands as a monument to the layered history of Arizona's borderlands.
As the sun sets over Arizona's rugged landscapes, these images remain as silent witnesses of triumph and tragedy. Heroes and outlaws have long faded into dust, yet their legacies linger in every stone and shadow. The frontier may be gone, but its spirit continues to breathe through history.